In a city full of glitz and glamour, you wouldn't expect the shining stars to be just northwest of where jackpot dreams become reality, but tonight, the result of 4 races and 4 different winners brings us here with anything still left on the cards. Beautiful day overhead in Las Vegas as we welcome you to coverage of the 5th round in the 2022 4-Wide Racing Cup Series season, live from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway with our continuing Season 4 coverage right here on MaxSpeedTV. So happy to have you join us once again on a Wednesday night. We're alongside Francisco Bacchial in the broadcast booth finally this season after Daytona. My name is Kenneth Bueno. Francisco, first things first, this track, this combo, first time we've ever visited a 1.5 miler in this season with this competition, and of course with the brand new machinery these drivers have been taking tests with over the past couple of weeks. Very exciting, and with the racing we saw last night with the Pro Series, it's going to be a lot of fun nonetheless.
Very happy to be here, Kenneth, and this is going to be a testament of what we're going to see for most of the season. As you know, mile and a halves make up a majority of the NASCAR schedule, both here, real life, and in all and most of the series that they run. So to get a good idea of what we see here is going to be what we see for most of the season. Of course, there's the different types of mile and a halves. You have these tri-oval mile and a halves like Las Vegas. You have the quad ovals like Texas and Atlanta. You also have the true ovals like Homestead, even Darlington that we'll be seeing in this season. So there's different types of tracks that escalate in that mile and a half intermediate type of range. But truly tonight's going to be the first time we get to see what it could be like. And we got to see a little bit of a taste yesterday in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. They had their 100-lap race here last night, and we did see some interesting things. We saw the high side come in. We might see that here tonight as well. We saw guys fighting their race cars. That's going to be something we're going to be seeing here a lot tonight, with the lack of side force, as we've mentioned in previous races with this new car. But I'm overall excited to see just what exactly is going to happen, because we have all these notes, we have all these presumptions made that we could be seeing here tonight, but at the end of the day, we really don't know, because there's still not enough track time with this race car. So this is where we start building those notes for future races, and also this serves as a sort of a preview for the NASCAR Cup Series this upcoming weekend, also at Las Vegas.
Definitely will. Las Vegas a little bit later this week, but tonight at Las Vegas does check off the final box that is needed for this 4-wide Cup Series field to experience all different types of tracks. Of course, we started the season at Daytona World Center Racing. That's a clear-cut super speedway. Then we headed off to Auto Club, a very big 2-mile track. It is very wide, very large. We'll see it also next week at the Michigan International Speedway. Then we took a hand at short track racing. We saw Phoenix, we saw Richmond included in the calendar as well. And now tonight, of course, the final mark on what's going to be completing every single type of track in this schedule. We've talked about this track in nauseam just a little bit in terms of racing, but let's get a little more detail as to where we are on the virtual world. We'll go overhead with our check map, with images, of course, provided to us by Google Earth. We are on the West Coast this evening after traveling from Richmond, Virginia, this time just outside of Las Vegas, the main strip on the main city. It's a 1.5-mile track, 2.4 kilometers, has history dating back to 1996 in this configuration, although it has been around before that. And obviously the banking very big on our discussion tonight, 12 to 20 degrees in the turns throughout the entire track length. So this brings, I think, to the point that you brought up to start, Francisco, the fact that we may see multiple grooves. And last night proved that you can run the second lane, the third lane, the fourth lane. You don't have to really reserve yourself all the way to the bottom. And I think we talked about it a little bit pre-race. These cars with the bumps, they don't take them very well. So that outside may be the place to go tonight,
especially in 1 and 2, because that's where those bumps are most present. So we'll see guys searching for most of the racetrack, but I think that when they do get single file, if we do see them get single file at some point in this race, if they work themselves out to be not as much too wide, you may see them work to the bottom, because at the end of the day, when you are running by yourself, it is faster to go to that low side of the racetrack and sort of get some rhythm going, build some momentum. But one thing for sure, as we mentioned, is that they're going to keep working with this car, because it could snap at any moment. What we have seen is that when you run the bottom, it is more likely to snap. So that's probably why we've seen some of these high side tendencies out of most of these drivers as of late. It's a little bit easier to run up there. The car isn't as unpredictable, so that could be playing into the hands of why we're seeing some of these guys doing what they're doing. Ultimately, we're going to be here tonight, as this race will definitely be ending under the lights in the night of the Las Vegas moon, really. and we're going to be seeing what our starting lineup is.
Going to be a sense of newness into tonight. And by the way, last season took us 6 races to get 4 different winners. It's only taken us 4 to get that same number in this amount of time. Right now, though, drivers are lined up on the starting grid, so it is our time to take a look and see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be lining up here tonight from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Lawson Peels still on the search for his very first win this season. He lines up on the pole with a 30.177. Eric Schaefer, also a dominant force, still without a cup race win. He lines up the outside of row number 1.
Your second row will consist of Brandon Smith. We've seen him here win before. He was very dominant the last time we were here, leading all but about 5 laps. Adam Alishire trying to see if he can get Stocks Motorsports yet another win in that second row.
Adam Alishire, former Championship 5 driver, and that championship came down to 1.5 mile track. Blake Sperling in the 01 will start on the inside of the top 5. Very good qualifying effort for him. Michael Newbra, not the same number we're accustomed to seeing. It's a 6 car this season, but he lines up the car in P6 out of all places.
Jesse Prees with a strong qualifying effort in the number 7 position, and another number in their position, the 8 of Tyler Murray, our league owner, will start off in the 8th position.
A car in P8, not surprising whatsoever. Nicholas Vizzuti in the 75, one of the Ford Mustangs in this field. He will be P9. Craig Launslugger, a Toyota Camry who dominated Richmond just last week, was not able to get to win. Gonna look for some success here at Las Vegas.
Christopher Bishop, a good qualifying effort out of him, is going to see him in the 11th position. And Dustin Webb, with an appearance here tonight, he'll be in the P12 position.
Back to row number 7 is defending champion AJ Green in the 48. Scott Healy, former multiple-time winner and champion in the series, a pair of champions in row number 7. And we'll look through the rest of the field. A lot of them did not take qualifying time, and a lot of heavy hitters. Francisco Colin Forster, Austin Reedy. You look at Joe Sanchez, Daniel Mitchell, who was at one point leading practice. So a lot of drivers buried deep in the field that are going to have to do a lot of work to get to the front of the field. The full 31-car grid. That is Ryan Seneca in the 19, the final driver in tonight's field. So a very large one here, Francisco, and Richmond showed us that these cars can take a beating, but they can still go over the edge. A lot of cautions last week. What are you expecting coming around here to Las Vegas, not only racing-wise, but contact-wise as well?
I think we still will see our fair share of wrecks, because we have seen that in the races that they've run on iRacing and in real life, that drivers are still having a hard time getting their heads wrapped around these race cars and just what they're doing in certain situations, because there's so limited knowledge. So we will see our fair share of attrition here tonight, but we also will see a fair share of racing. And I'm excited to see in what order that's going to arrive in. I'm not sure if it's going to be the wrecking in the beginning or the wrecking at the end. You just know it's going to happen at some point, considering the lack of knowledge on this race car. But nonetheless, that's all going to get put behind the window. The pace car makes that left turn onto pit road. Gambling time at Las Vegas as the field takes the green flag. We're underway.
Quick getaway by one of the former winners here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Brian Smith brings his 78 Toyota Camry immediately to the front, and he'll wobble in turn 1 and 2. We'll pick the car back up, and that opens the door for Lawson Peels to take back the lead coming out of turn 2.
And we have a caution on the racetrack. It looks like there was a wreck back there in turn 1. You see some smoke, and you see the remnants of that. And there you see several cars stranded around the racetrack, including Tyler Warner there in the 33. Some heavy damage to his race car. Scott Healy's already towed back to the pit lane. Some extensive damage there. Big incident must have happened entering turn 1, Kenneth. And that's one thing that did happen in the race of yesterday. We saw several incidents happening going into turn 1. We'll have to see what happened there. You see a little bit of a car sideways. That seems to be Dustin Webb, but it might have started actually further up ahead. Oh, you see 2 cars getting sideways into turn 1, and a full hit there for Scott Healy after getting hit by Tyler Murray.
It looked like Craig Launslugger among this group. Actually, really, Nicholas Vizzuti just behind the number 13 got way loose on the racetrack. slid all over the place. That was Tyler Murray, the orange, black, and white car just behind the Ford Mustang. And you see as Lonslinger gets loose, Scott Healy goes for a huge hit in the outside safer barrier. You see Tyler Warner back there in the 33. He also got caught up in the mess as well. We'll take another look at this one from an aerial shot. You see the two up at the top of the racetrack, just in front of Lonslinger, who's that chrome and red Toyota Camry, feign the distance. And then both get sideways, and then for Scott Healy, just goes straight into the wall as Dustin Webb gets another piece of it. And looks like, Francisco, two different crashes, one in the front and one in the back. Here's a look from Warner. That's Matt Roberts getting loose in front of him.
Yeah, that one in the back was definitely interesting there. But, you know, to know that was their first time up to speed going through turn one, and we saw a car step out there on corner entry, and that's something that with this car, it's a little bit more consistent in the sense that that's bound to happen more times than not. You feel you have the grip, you feel you can actually turn in, and the car can. The only problem is the aerodynamic grip isn't there, and when it's not there, it makes for that inconsistency these drivers are feeling, which and sometimes it'll stick, sometimes it'll want to come around on you. So it's very tough to figure out just exactly what the car is going to do, and that alluded to what we were talking about at the top of the show, that these cars are very unstable. There's still not enough of a notebook really built around what they can and can't do, and that's what it kind of leads to.
And also, you mentioned a point, Francisco, that actually plays to this race very well, specifically in 1 and 2, is that in the real life race at the Auto Club Speedway, there's a lot of bumps down there because, of course, that surface pretty old in terms of Auto Club Speedway, how long that track has been around, but a lot of the drivers you could see definitely avoid the bumps on the bottom of the racetrack, which makes them go higher. So usually they run in the middle and the very top. In previous generations, they wouldn't be having a problem with running all the way to the inside line. So maybe that's just the case. So like you said, Francisco, before we started tonight, is that the bumps just don't really treat this car well. This car does not know how to handle them correctly. And so you really want to avoid them at all costs. You got to be very careful, though, if you want to get through them. And it's just been very tough to kind of figure out how you can get over the hump in terms of that specifically, because we've got a lot of tracks with bumps around them on the schedule. So safe to say that the bumps are not going to be disappearing anytime soon. We'll try to rack up a restart here. It looks to be lap 7 at 134. We are still under caution. Lights are on the pace car, and you saw there a short look on pit road with Tyler Warner already burned a faster pair. That is one of the rules here in the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series. You can get a fresh race car if you do end up in an incident. Only rule is you have to tow it, or you have to really bring the car to pit road. You cannot tow it, or else you're going to have a time just sitting there waiting for the towing to finish before you can get any sort of repairs. So Tyler Warner, among many of the drivers to get their fast repairs, it looks like Scott Healy also is another taker of the fast repairs. So at least two drivers here, Francisco, that are looking to get freebies in the opening laps of this race. Not what they wanted, but it'll get them to the end, and they'd rather have that than a beat-up race car that's going to run multiple laps down and way off the pace.
Yeah, you'll always prefer to have a race car versus not have a race car, and in this case, a good amount of the field is going to look at that and say, yep, we're in a pretty good spot. Generally speaking, you don't want to have used your fast repair before lap 10, most certainly, so it's not exactly ideal, but you'll take what you got, and from there you go, because you've probably ran races where you don't have fast repairs at all, namely NIS, and this is around that NIS length. In fact, it's exactly the NIS length, 134 laps. So when you run those official races, you don't have fast repairs, but you still have to complete the distance. So you have to sort of treat the race as such when you don't have fast repairs in this instance. So we'll see how that changes the approach of those guys that have used the fast repairs, even those that may have it and don't want to use it, at least not in the first 100 or so laps. So that could lead to see what we see in terms of the racing, how aggressive some of these guys get, and that could definitely play a role as to what we see later here tonight. You see most of the field there already doubled up or one to green. Some other guys are exiting pit road, continuing to make some repairs, it seems, or just filling up the fuel tanks. Not really sure what to expect, Kenneth, as far as the fuel window, too. That's something we haven't looked at precisely. It's not too much different than what it is before. The cars have about an extra gallon of fuel, but they do have a higher usage, which is quite interesting. But in the end, it works itself out to a similar range, just not exactly able to pinpoint exactly what we see. So if we get in a fuel mileage situation at some point in this race, I'm not sure I'll be able to quite predict that as well.
You know what? I'm not going to fault you for having questions about the fuel window because we don't really know anything about this car in this competition all too much. Pace car, though, going to make its way down a pit road for the second time tonight. This time first on the restart here at lap 7 of 134. That is a big wobble once again out of your race leader, Brian Smith. Although he's going to clear the field coming to turn 1. Looks like Eric Schaefer might have been the one to give him the push as they were going up through the gears, this time through 1 and 2. Schaefer not going to have the momentum. Here comes Peel to work over second.
Peel trying to take over that second spot. You see momentarily 3 wide back there as most of the field does get spread out. And this is something we didn't really see with the Coke series, Kenneth. And maybe this is why we're seeing it here today, because these guys aren't Coke drivers. So there's a little bit more of a wider range in terms of the abilities of these drivers, and that's where you're seeing them able to get spread out. So that actually could play into their benefit. Having them spread out could allow them to race a little bit more relaxed. But speaking of that, look how far sideways that is right there. That's Adam Allenshire in the 4 car. He gets it under control, and he's able to keep going in the right direction. So that goes back to what we saw in the last caution, a car getting loose going into turn 1.
And now a caution comes out officially, this time not of Adam Allenshire's fault. Instead, it's Kevin DeLeo. We saw him coming out of pit road just before they got the green flag. And not too much damage assessed on the 53 Ford Mustang, but DeLeo going to have to try and limp it back up to traffic as he causes the second caution on lap 9 of 134. We'll see if this is a single car spin or whether he had some help on the way there. I think the story very simple here, Francisco. Turn 1 and 2, the trouble spot for really everybody. And Kevin DeLeo, one of the victims, car snaps in the middle of the corner.
And lucky to not get anyone else in this, not seriously anyways. You see some cars have taken a bit, some evasive action. But we saw, like I said, we saw this being the issue in the Coke series for different reasons, but in the same spot of the racetrack. You're going to see he's going to turn in for the corner, and immediately he just loses the race car. And that's not really a fault of his own. Again, that seems to be a characteristic of this car, and that's something, again, that these guys haven't exactly gotten a chance to wrap their heads around. So they're still trying to learn what the car itself will do. It'll lead to circumstances like this, and it's just part of the process of learning with something of this magnitude.
We saw Curtis Kelly, who was barely able to get around the spinning Kevin DeLeo, who was moving down the degrees of banking there in 1 and 2. And it's just the way this car handles, unfortunately. And, you know, there's a big difference in aerodynamics pretty much all around this car. Of course, we've mentioned it just a little bit over the course of the season. The symmetrical bodies, the kind of higher ride height as opposed to last year, the new 18-inch wheels, the fact that we've got hood vents, the fact that we have, you know, the shorter greenhouse, which makes the windshield look a lot lower, the roof look a lot lower, to kind of make it sort of similar to the cars you see out on the street. But one of the biggest implements in this next-gen car is that underbody. NASCAR stock car racing has never had an underbody and a diffuser on the race cars before. And so with this being an implement, it's kind of like an Indy car, which do have diffusers on. Well, you get the car sideways, you get into a certain yaw angle, and then the downforce just immediately goes away on the underside. And that's exactly what happens because it gets funneled through the step splitter at the front, comes out the diffuser in the rear. And then if the air is not coming in properly because the car is sideways, all of a sudden it can lose all the downforce, pretty much make the underbody inefficient, make it unusable, and then the car just goes for a spin, similar to what we saw Kevin DeLeo do in 1 and 2. So field will slow down. We'll have another caution here. We'll try to wrap it up very quickly, but while we do have a chance, we'll take a look at our entire schedule, Francisco. A lot of great tracks in this one, and I've talked about it a couple times, but you cannot take your eyes off some of the new venues we're seeing here this season. Road America, check. COTA, check. You're seeing Nashville Super Speedway coming back, but this time as a playoff race. Texas being the finale. So many surprises, and I think so many good races we're going to see with this car as well.
Very interesting ones, and I think one of the more notable ones coming up soon is going to be those road races, Kenneth, because we have yet to really see this car properly race at a road course. And this car was designed around also being quicker at the road courses, being more adept. That's why they added the gear. That's why they added the diffuser. It is meant to be better for road racing as they added more road races to the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. So Road America, COTA, those races are going to be very interesting to see just how they work out. Another one that's going to be interesting is the return of New Hampshire. This track, I feel, is going to be very similar to Phoenix in the sense that we may see some shifting down into fourth gear in the corners. Pocono, it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of, like I said, we talked about the downforce on this race car, but there's still the possibility where you can shift down to fourth at a track like Pocono, especially in turns 3 and maybe even turn 1. So a lot of interesting stuff going on in the next month or so. But definitely, if there's any interesting ones, I would probably say Michigan, very high speed there. We could be seeing 200 miles an hour with this race car, and most certainly Road America.
Yeah, Road America going to be one of the tests of road racing, and we saw Watkins Glen a part of the schedule last season. It is a part of the schedule this season, so don't fret, Watkins Glen fans. It's not going anywhere. It's a little bit later in the campaign, but the additions of Road America and Circuit of the Americas, I think one of the biggest parts about the new schedule is that they're trying to expand into different types of road racing. Charlotte Roval is not on the schedule anymore. It used to be a couple of seasons back, but with this new car, all the newness of drivers and teams, so many different factors coming in together for this season. The schedule, of course, no exception. So we're looking forward, I think, nonetheless, when we go to Elkhart Lake, when we go to Austin, Texas. So we'll see how those cars handle and obviously who becomes the best road racer. We've already got some of the premonitions because Brian M. Smith, your race leader, is one of them. Kyle Benson also in as well. Unfortunately, Benson not here tonight at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway for tonight's race, but he is one to watch for on the road courses as well. But still, a lot of questions in the air. So your former road course winner, Watkins Glen, last season, Brian M. Smith, is going to bring us back to green flag racing. Lawson Peels going to be in the outside, no changes through a majority of the first couple of rows. Jesse Priest, though, has moved his way into fourth, so a great move up so far for that 00 Chevrolet Camaro. So everybody will be doubled up. We'll be ready to head back to the gears up to 5 here coming out of turn 2, and hopefully we can see just how much this car takes, how much it kind of gives, and what it doesn't like here in the course of a long green flag run. Pace car going to make its way back down to pit road, restart lap 13 of 134. Toyota Camry in. Brian M. Smith checks up the inside lane just a bit. You immediately dart for the apron. We are back on a green from Vegas.
And the leader once again gets a good jump, and that's always been the name of the game when it comes to iRacing. The leader's always able to get a good launch and really build a gap. It's further back in the field. That's where it becomes a mess. When you get a line jumbled up, as you see, it starts creating battles deeper in the field. And in this current situation, with got the cars doing what they're doing, it's going to be very tough. You're looking back from Scott. That's going to be the second place of Lawson Peels. He started on pole, but has not been able to get the lead. He had the lead taken away from him by Brian M. Smith on the opening lap. Been second sis, but look at this. Most of the field has sort of tried to spread out. They want to give each other a gap. It's just been very chaotic these opening laps. They realize how treacherous these cars are, and they're trying to work with each other to some extent to try and help each other out, but they also want to keep racing.
That was Eric Schaefer who got loose out of turn 2, opened the door for Peels to take back second, and then just lost out on the battle for third, fourth, and fifth. So now he falls to 6th. Meanwhile, here comes Austin Riddy, Daytona winner this season. Underneath Adam Alashire, former Championship 5 driver last season at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. Alashire will hold out hope on the top lane. Will have no help coming out of the second corner. And they'll maintain door-to-door as most of the side-by-side action happening deep within the top 10, top 15. Here's Blake Sperling underneath Brandon Banks.
Yeah, this is the part of the racetrack right now that has the most intense battling. You see about 10 cars there really decently close to each other, and they're mostly on the top, and this goes back to what we were talking about. The outside is definitely more preferred. You can carry a lot more momentum up there. That's always been true, but with this race car in particular, with how it handles those bumps, if you're able to get on the outside of somebody, you want to make sure you can keep them pinned on the inside, but it looks like though there was a moment there for that 0-1. You see him lose a lot of momentum, and he's going to lose some spots there as well. But right now, the middle of the field has the most intense battle.
Yeah, a lot of drivers here working for position, and even a majority of them involved in incidents. Tyler Murray, who's got heavy right front damage on his Chevrolet Camaro. He's now up to P16. You see Nicholas Vizzucci was involved in a turn 1 scuffle. He's 18th. There's defending champion AJ Green, not involved in an accident tonight, but he is 19th, trying to work his way up through the field. And so a good cast of drivers who were in crashes and spins so far in the opening laps of this race. They're now back in, trying to make sure they can be competitive for the rest of this event. Here's Schaefer back for 4th. That was outside move there on Jesse Priest, and looks like there's a lot of speed on Schaefer's Chevrolet Camaro, Francisco, but it's just the mistakes that really get you. And for Schaefer, it happened out of turn 2. Luckily, he's been able to pick it up.
Yeah, Schaefer is doing really good right now. We come to recognize him as of late as a very good driver on these short tracks, but he's taken that Busch Chevrolet Camaro up to the front at 1.5 miles, and very good job on his part. We like I said, it could be a package thing. We've seen him perform good with this small spoiler with high horsepower, and maybe seeing it on the big track, he is finally showing what he can do, and he's working his way towards the front. But something I have noticed, look at those top two. They have pulled away from most of the field. Lawson Peels climbs back to Brian M. Smith, and he's going to try and put the challenge on here. You see he's right on the back bumper. He's actually going to look to the inside going into turn 3. Is he going to go for it? Not exactly. Smith is going to try and shut the door on the 12. Luckily for Peel, dirty air is not too big of a problem this time. It's not exactly still a draft through the corners, but you can go about that far behind somebody and not exactly lose your entire race car. But he's still got to find a different line to approach Smith to try something different. I don't think that one's going to work right there. He's going to definitely take some aggressive bumps and not have a chance at the lead. But it looks like Smith almost tagged the wall. But just look at those top two, Kenneth. They have pulled away from most of the field, and the amount of separation we're seeing here today, not exactly surprising, considering these aren't exactly Coke Series drivers, but it is definitely interesting to see because we didn't see much of this until you had green flag pit stops last season. Most of the time they would stay bunched up, but there's the move to the inside.
There's a move to the bottom, attempt not successful this time. He hit the reset button, but actually as Smith washes up coming out of turn 2, strikes the outside wall for a moment. Lawson Peel finds the nose in, and Lawson Peel to the race lead here from Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Smith is going to have a chance to come back out of turn 4, but for the moment, looks like Peel has it mostly clear. They'll go almost completely side by side coming to the start-finish line, but Peel will have the advantage going into turn 1, and a lot of the differences come in the lines that they're both taking, or at least what they used to take. Here is Peel's going to try and slide job, not going to work, and Smith going to come back to the outside. Was the difference in how Smith and Peel played the corners. You see Smith taking more of an arc into the inside lane, of course still using the bottom, but just taking a little while longer to get there in the middle of the corner. Meanwhile, Lawson Peel wants to stay committed to that white line from the entry of the corner all the way to at least the exit where you can slide up and get the move out of the banking. But you'll see it once again here. You see Peel go a little bit lower. Smith gonna arc it down, gonna try to get the advantage this time a little more in the middle of the corner, but difference in lines as Peel will hit the outside wall.
Oh, he's gonna hit that. Oh, and he keeps it off that opening. Very close call there for Lawson Peel. You can see how aggressive he was, and those bumps there are not forgiving. You could see that coming when he was going as hard as he was with that inside lane. We're gonna get a replay here. He was trying to hold it down there, trying to see if he can gain on the 19 of Smith, and you're just gonna see him wash up right there. Just the car did not have it, and very nearly spins to the inside and hits that opening very aggressively. But fortunately for him, he's able to keep it straight. He's still in P3, has damage to the right side of the race car, but unlike the car basically being totaled, he's still pretty decent right now. He's obviously going to be slower, but it's not going to be the end of the world for him right now.
It seems to be not as bad of damage, and with the composite bodies we have in the next gen car, this car can take a little bit of a hit before it starts to really fall off the cliff. I think for Peel, the handling is going to be the biggest problem because he continues to suffer that push over understeer effect. It's not going to be good for the rest of the race, especially because he might get eaten up by some of the traffic here a little bit fourth on back. There's Jesse Preece in a 0. Of course, Austin Reed just got by as Schaefer hits the outside wall out of 2. Similar condition to Peel, but if Peel ends up falling short of Preece, Alishire, Schaefer, Hill, and a couple other drivers within the top 10, it may make that understeer effect a little bit worse in his case. Here's a nice battle between 10th on back. This is Brandon Banks in the 88, one of the former Championship 5 drivers, trying to hold off the 89 of CJ Munier. That's the 2 of Austin Bloom in that blue and white Chevrolet Camaro with Oreo sponsorship on the sides and the front of the race car. Brandon Banks, very consistent, has been consistent over last season, which was his first entrant into the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series, and Brandon Banks so far doing good. Top 10 run if he can try to hold these guys off.
Solid for him right now, and down in the 17th position, Daniel Michel's kind of holding up a little bit of a train right now. There's 7 or 8 cars behind him lined up. No one really able to make a move. You see him right there. A pretty decent pack behind him. Right there you see the 03, the 64 of Healy, who was involved in that crash on lap number 2. So most of these guys have kind of really stuck together back here. You see Joe Sanchez there as well, unable to really do anything with this right now, and most of this is caused by the restart. You see the 03 actually gets into the wall there. This is naturally caused by the restart. When you're this far back, normally you lose ground, but once this run has gone several laps, they haven't exactly broken away from each other like we've seen at the front. So Part of it is due because of the natural dirty air, but also because when you're this far back in the field, it is a lot harder to pass. Everyone's racing that much harder because they don't want to fall down even more than what they already have. So it's very difficult for some of these right now in this current position. They're also not going to put their car in a risky spot because most of the people that are back here, to remind, have already used their fast repair. Yeah, he's pulled away from the field, and he had that challenge by Lawson Peels there for a bit before Peels got into the outside wall. But right now, Austin Reedy has kind of maintained the gap to the race leaders. In fact, he's actually closed it by just a little bit, and that could be down to tire saving. And that's another thing that we haven't talked about at all with this car, Kenneth, is how do you properly save tires? Of course, we're still in tire model 7, but it is still a different race car with an actual different tire, with an 18-inch aluminum tire, and that does play a factor in how the tire wears. Of course, with the aerodynamics and the natural chassis of the car, all that does play tire wear into a different account. So we're not exactly sure if it's the same in the truest of senses, but also what can abuse the tire or what can even save the tire in a little bit of ways. So that's something that we still haven't figured out with this car yet, that we're going to learn as races go on, as we get long runs. So that's going to be something we have to see, because we don't know if it's the same or if you have to drive the car differently to save tires anymore. Oh yeah. Wow. You saw how far sideways that 22 was on the backstretch. I was convinced that car was going around. I've seen that before. That car is supposed to spin out, but an incredible job with some quick hands by the 22 of Schaefer. And let's see here exactly how this had happened on this replay. You see he's going to exit the corner, try and get close to him. He's going to hit him in the door right there. That's supposed to go to the inside, and right there, that's supposed to go to the outside wall. Fantastic job by the 22, having none of this happen. Excellent hands by him. Boom. And we do stay green. That's the other thing that comes out of that. But one thing and I've noticed, Kenneth, while we were looking at that, is Austin Reedy has now cut the lead under a second. He's just around that 1 second mark. He is starting to close in on your race leader, and he's starting to run some pretty decent lap times. You see some lap traffic actually not too far ahead of the race leader, so we have gone some pretty decent amount of laps into this run. We're about closing into 30 laps into this run, so we're going to see pit stops potentially. I'm going to say around the 15 laps away mark. I'm going to say around the lap 50 we potentially will see green flag pit stops, and that's being safe. We did have some caution laps, so I think I'll be a little bit more fair and say 45 to 50. That's the range I'm going to guess pit stops are going to be seen on. So sooner than later, these guys are going to try green flag pit stops. And this is another thing, Kenneth. I don't think we've seen green flag pit stops in this series yet. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that means pit road entry is going to be very interesting with this new braking system, with the tires. You can go in deeper, but it's much easier to lock up the brakes with this braking package.
There we go. There we have our Larry McReynolds in the booth. I know I'm not good with strategy. I know you usually carry me on that front. So at least we've got some learning curve here in Las Vegas. That's Dustin Webb you were riding on board with, who just went a lap down. That was the lap traffic that you, Francisco, were talking about. It's only one car here, so for Smith, it's going to be quite easy work here. Maybe the same for Austin Reedy, as field very separated, not a lot of pack racing. You'll only find it through the mid portion of the field. So while Smith continues to man the field, we'll keep an eye on what happens between him and the 11 as you work lap 38, closing in on what could be our first round of green flag pit stops. Why don't we take a listening to these next gen engines and crank it up here on MaxSpeedTV. Hearing all the engines, seeing all the sights in car, out of the car, wherever across this Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Absolutely beautiful as they continue to roar here on lap 44 of 134. That rhymed, but you watch the battle dwindle. Austin Reedy, or at least the gap starting to close in. Austin Reedy starting to catch in about 0.2 of a second that last time by. Reedy set a 31.13, while Brian Smith set a 31.18. And here comes Reedy slowly chipping in this gap. Smith maybe a little bit nervous coming in the first round of green flag stops.
Not sure if it's nerves that he's exactly feeling, knowing a pit stop's coming ahead. Maybe he's kind of looking forward to it. Perhaps maybe ate up a little bit of those tires early on in the run to build that gap in the first place, and now we're seeing the downsides of that. And Reedy's been very methodical, closed in the gap, and now he's putting the pressure on this 78. You see right there a little bit of a move up the racetrack the 78 had. That's going to allow the 11 to close in the gap once more off turn 4. It is no longer time distance that we're measuring. It is car lengths, and it is down to under 2 as he is very close to the rear bumper of the 78. He's going to be challenging for the race lead potentially before pit stops. We'll just have to see if that's the case, because these guys are going to be coming in sometime in the next 5, definitely 10 laps.
Here's Reedy on board on his Chevrolet Camaro. He is there. The only thing is he needs to find a way around this 78 car, and we've seen the inside not be as efficient as it's been in years past. So if you're Reedy here, do you take the outside or the inside to make this pass?
I mean, it depends, because we've seen the 78 move up a little bit, so it does allow for the inside to be an option if he runs on your outside and makes a mistake, because it slows him down, of course. However, with this package, it's very tough, because we've seen that outside you can carry a lot more momentum and going to be very useful in making the pass. So it's very difficult to tell, but you have to try where you can. When you have this much of a pace advantage, the inside could work in your favor, but who knows? As they are side by side now, he did get to the inside of Smith. They're going to go through one. This is probably where you don't want to be on the inside through turn one. We're going to see him hit those bumps. Smith's going to get on that right rear quarter panel. This is going to have the 78 be very effective down this back straightaway. He's going to edge back ahead of Reedy. Does he get clear? Not quite. Reedy's going to stay on that left rear, but this isn't favorable necessarily in the corner. When we got on the straightaway, Smith actually is going to back out because he's going to come down pit road.
So our first round of green flag pit stops starts with Brian M. Smith, your race leader, or at least your former race leader, as Austin Reedy will swoop by. He will take control of this race here from Las Vegas, and now that may end up changing the trajectory for everybody, because we really haven't seen anybody through the midfield come down on pit road, actually. And never mind that, there's Tyler Murray, Ryan Seneca, the 8 and the 19, coming in for their first round of green flag stops. So this is starting to trigger a lot of other competitors to come in. Now the question is, when?
Your race leader's now in. Austin Reedy's pulled into pit road, but Kenneth, I think that was very smart on Brian M. Smith's part. He pinned him on the inside. He had him going a lot slower than he maybe would have been had they been single file, and then he backs out of it to come down pit road, and probably helped his entrance because he didn't have such an acute angle. So that was actually very intelligent on the part of Brian M. Smith. Now he has to make sure that the stop and the exit here is very efficient. You see the traffic that's going to be in his way on corner exit with these new tires, so that might play a role into how this lead is exchanged here. But if he was very effective getting in and out, that could mean he keeps the lead and could build a bigger gap, because that was very smart what he did. Austin Reedy obviously also coming in a lap later, so he'll have 1 lap better tires now under green. So Reedy exiting pit road. He does have some traffic he's exiting with. Smith is going through turn 1 now, and I believe Brian M. Smith has already passed him. And indeed, that's the case. So Brian M. Smith has actually gained a pretty decent chunk on your leader. Actually, Smith is crashing on the back straightaway.
Smith on the back straightaway seems to be in trouble. We'll try to get a look, but as he's around, I think he may have alt-F forward, so he is completely gone from the racing track. And we have to take a look at exactly what happened with your former race leader, the driver who was dominant all race long. There's a look inside, and it's the case of turn 1, Francisco. The bumps get the best of Smith, and at one point he saves it, but then officially loops the car sideways and actually doesn't have any damage, just decides to quit.
And that may be because he was that low on the racetrack. No caution was going to come out for that, and he felt like he had thrown the race away at that point. So that could be the reason why he left in that moment. But Kenneth, one thing I did notice there, that seems to be very predominant with brand new tires. We saw a lot of guys running down there once we got several laps into the run, and it didn't really pose too much of an issue. Maybe with new tires, there's something in those tires in the way that they run the air pressures, something that's naturally built in with the tire and the aerodynamics, that when the tires are brand new, running that inside makes it very difficult to handle. And it called out Brian M. Smith, who was going to be the race leader. He actually had built a really decent gap, but instead is going to lose positions. And right now, AJ Green is your race leader. I believe he came in under one of these cautions, and so did the rest of these guys that have yet to have come out pit road. So we have several cars that haven't quite cycled out yet to the race lead, but they are still actively leading the race because of how the pit stop sequence is currently working out. So we could be seeing them go another 5 laps at best before the lap 60 mark. They could be coming down pit road for their eventual service. But one thing's for sure is that by the time they do make their pit stop, everybody still has to come in at least another time, because you cannot go the rest of those races on fuel. Obviously not on tires either, but more so the fuel is a little bit more important in that sense. These guys that came down pit road on lap 50 or so, I believe they can go all the way until the lap 90 to 95 mark, and that'll be really close, but they should be safe to go to the end of the race from that point. And obviously the people who have yet to pit, they can go on 1 stop easy. So if it's that close for those guys that pitted already, it's going to be very interesting to see how this works out if we stay green.
There's a look at Colin Forster, AJ Green, who are going toe-to-toe for the race lead here, lap 56 of 134. Similar sight to just 1 week ago at the Richmond Raceway, in terms where AJ Green got the nose ahead of Forster going into turn 3 on the last restart of the race. Caution flag flown, and as Forster gonna hit the brakes coming to pit road, he will go for this stop here to try and get around a fuel in. But AJ Green nosing ahead. The last caution was able to be scored first at the timing loop, and that's what gave AJ Green his first win this season. The defending champion, of course, looking for 2 in a row and trying to get Stonks Motorsports another championship after their maiden voyage last season. And so AJ Green in a very interesting Hebrew beef Chevrolet Camaro, pushing the limits here as Austin Riddy will look to unlap himself, and here comes Green down pit road.
The Hebrew beef machine is going to go down pit road now, and if everybody that's behind him does follow suit, that will cycle the lead out to Austin Riddy. So we're going to see Austin Riddy take the lead here. And Kenneth, this is one thing I do want to mention, as we see a very close call there for that 76 of Tony Kivitt trying to make that commitment cone. Austin Riddy last season probably had one of the worst seasons of his career, kind of self-admittedly too. He was very disappointed with how he ran last season. Was able to get the win at Texas. That sort of made his season. But he came out of the gates firing this season, able to get that win at Daytona. He's been fast everywhere, and he is trying to make up for last season. And I'll tell you what, he has done a great job in trying to make up for last season. He has definitely looked more focused, in a better condition as far as his position on the racetrack, what he's doing in these races. Austin Riddy definitely is looking like that driver we saw in season 3. It's still early on right now, but Austin Riddy is looking like that driver we saw when we started covering this series, Kenneth. And if this is the kind of driver we're going to see for most of the season, he's definitely trying to make a case for a championship run.
It definitely looks to be so. And of course, if he can get to victory lane tonight as we approach in on halfway here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, he would become the first repeat winner this season. Mentioned at the top of the show, we've had 4 different winners. It took us to race 6 to have that happen in season 3. And it has taken us the first 4 to get 4 different winners in season 4. So really going to be the first to look for number 2 on the campaign. And also to mention, it's been kind of a convergence between 2 series using this next-gen car. The 4-Wide Racing Cup Series, of course, this is their maiden season with this next-gen machine. But the MPI Cup Series, on the other hand, a couple of different series with a bunch of different guys that have some similarities with some drivers. They're also running this car. And Austin Riddy has won the first 2 races in a row. Was at victory lane at the full-length Daytona 500 on that front, and then was able to walk away with the win at the Auto Club Speedway as well. So it's safe to say Riddy has a lot of experience with this car. He cycles back to the race lead, and it looks not surprising whatsoever that Riddy is taking control of this race after Smith's accident.
Yeah, and right there, speaking of accident, you see the 4 car very wiggly on the outside line, but able to keep that one under control. You see the 53 is going to pull down, and actually a caution on the racetrack. Not particularly sure who this is due to. I believe there was an incident right there. You see right there, the 16 of Matt Roberts had a problem going into turn 1. It seems, Kenneth, it looks as though that turn 1 may have caught out another driver once more.
Looks like turn 1 and 2 is officially the trouble spot, and we had the same argument at Richmond just last week, where the exit of turn 2 seemed to catch a lot of drivers, and I think really it caught him on the trial wall. I'm not sure exactly why. You see 16 gets through the trial wall and start-finish line okay. I'm not sure what happened there. Car just veered to the left and was trying to get it back situated. Car drifts up the hill. That's the trouble spot right there. It gets loose, overcorrects the machine, into the outside wall he goes. Luckily enough for Roberts, he does not collect anybody else. But Roberts, who had been at least 2 laps down prior to this crash, his night has gone from bad to worse.
Very curious as to how this happened. You see right there, it looks like he's under control as he goes into turn 1, and then the car loses it right there. So maybe an issue happened beforehand in the trial, which is separate from what the actual crash itself was. You see the onboard here from Tony Kivitt. He just sees a car wrecking right in front of him, is able to take avoiding action. But if we can, let's try and go on board with Roberts from the inside of his race car and see what exactly he was fighting there, and see maybe what he saw from sort of his perspective. You see right there, going into 1, and it's hard to make out exactly what may have happened. I'm not sure if there was a software issue prior where in the trial, and that's where we saw him sort of kind of get sideways, but never really out of control. You see right here, the car just kind of loses it. He just kind of loses the car there in the trial in the corner, and then he goes in and it's sideways. A potential tire issue, Kenneth?
Not exactly sure. It's kind of weird.
Had he pitted?
I don't believe he had pitted. I think he just pitted now because of the damage, so it might have just been the case of old tires, but I've never seen that before in the case where a next-gen car has gone sideways on the trial here at Las Vegas. So that is definitely weird, something we'll have to try and diagnose. But for Matt Roberts...
Interesting note here, for about the lap or so that he was getting up to speed, he was going notoriously slower on the racetrack, so there was definitely an issue there on his race car that he was not trying to go full speed for some reason. So there was definitely something going on with that race car, some sort of gremlins he was fighting getting out of pit road because he was not up to full speed.
Yeah, so Roberts struggles tonight, continues to have problems there on his rig and in his race car, and just unfortunate. I mean, we've seen it multiple times, and I'm not going to officially say this is a hardware issue, but it could also play into it because we've seen that countless times where cars do very weird things and not what they would usually do on the iRacing service, and then you kind of question what happens there, and then you look at the onboards, you look at the footage, and then you just see either it was a hardware machine issue, the screen turned off, a wheel decided to veer all the way to the right or to the left for absolutely no reason. You know, software crashes, internet crashes, a bunch of different situations. So we can't quite say exactly what happened to Roberts. So we'll try to find out a little bit later on tonight. But for Roberts, it definitely just continues to sour what's been a very struggling day here from Las Vegas. And also to mention, Francisco, there were a lot of lead lap drivers who went down pit road because of that caution. Most notably, Austin Reedy and Jesse Priest. A lot of drivers from 9th on back deciding to come for pit road. Looks like this is the call for them to try to make it to the end of this race. Try.
Well, they still got to pit one more time, but it definitely makes it a little bit more assured. We talked about how it would have been a tight situation even with that one pit stop that they would have had to have made. By them stopping now, they have one stop that they have to make in about a 70 lap window, split at about 35 each, with the top being able to go closer to 45 laps. So there's definitely some wiggle room there for them to work with. But the case in point is they are definitely good to go on a one-stop trip between now and the end of the race. So that was what they pitted here for. They had also gone somewhere close to 15 laps since they had last came down pit road. So they wanted to come in, put some new tires on those race cars, and try and go at it again for a restart. But interestingly, you see several of these guys did stay out. On the other hand, probably have pitted a little bit more recently on that alternative strategy. You see right there, Adam Alishire. You see AJ Green up there. You see Marky Harris as well. So you have to go back down to the 9th position to find Austin Reedy, who was the first of those guys on the original strategy that was leading the race beforehand. So I think it'll be interesting to see how long it takes for him to get up there. But I also think it'll be just as equally interesting to see how these guys on old tires will perform on this restart, because that is not something we've seen yet. We have not been in a situation where we've seen these old tires versus new tires, and this is some new territory for everybody, us as well. So I think everyone's going to be kind of either biting their seatbelt or reaching over for the popcorn.
And now I wonder, Adam Alishire, who was in that group with Austin Reedy, who had pitted the earliest out of the entire field, he was the only one in that group, really, apart from Christopher Bishop, to stay out. Meanwhile, Forster, Green, Michelle, Mark Harris, all the guys who were kind of on the later end strategy, they're staying out for track position because, of course, they haven't put that many laps on their set of tires. So we'll see how Alishire handles this up at the front of the field. Nonetheless, though, pace car makes its way down a pit road. It's a Ford Mustang and Adam Alishire that heads immediately for the starting blocks. And as of lap 65 of 134, Adam Alishire, your race leader.
You see those two cars on the bottom. They're going to try and tandem Forster. The teammate of the four is going to try and use that inside to maybe get up there and battle his teammate. See a little bit of free wide further back, but Forster looking to the inside of Alishire. Alishire is going to move down to try and cover that spot. Now he's going to go to the inside. He has the position on his teammate. He'll take the lead away. Alishire on the high side, though, try and maybe make a combat back down to the bottom, but he's actually going to get racy. And look at Reedy in the back, goes through the grass.
Reedy, with a massive save out of turn 4, is able to keep the car collected. Remember, he was the first driver on the freshest set of tires. And somehow, much like Eric Schaefer, even with the trip to the grass, it keeps green, but crash happens right in front of him. Caution flag out. Multiple cars in it. I see Jesse Breeze up there. There's another car stranded on the inside. That is Austin Bloom. But there was also another incident, what looked to be involving maybe the 93 Cody Kinsey. Indeed it was the Quaker State car in front of Austin Reedy, and then trouble up in front.
That happened very quickly, Kenneth. That really that popped off rather quick, and it was the guys that pitted that had all these issues, not the guys on old tires. So that is very interesting to note. But Reedy went through the grass. We saw that. But right there, ooh, the 73 Dustin Webb seemed to have had an issue. He kind of clips that 93 on the right rear quarter panel just as he gets loose. Very unfortunate for Kinsey. See right there, hit into the outside wall, and I think he may have tagged. Yeah, he gets hit by somebody. I couldn't exactly make out who that was, but a slight contact was made with Austin Reedy. So Reedy didn't really spin or anything, but he did get hit there. So let's see now what happened here. It looked like there was another incident right there. You see a red car have an issue to the bottom. They were able to recover, but those two, wow, right there, these two also have their own incident. My God, another big crash there, similar to what we saw lap 2.
Very huge ride that Austin Bloom takes. He was on board with Jesse Breeze, and also up in front of him, didn't get involved in it, but Lance Hill also whipped the car sideways. You see right there, they both go in tandem. Also Curtis Kelly with issues on fresh tires, and then I see travels up the track. It's in a Craig Laumslager, who then gets in Austin Bloom. And then there are even more drivers who get caught up in the mess. There's more carnage up ahead the road. There's Dustin Webb, who got into the rear end of the 93 of Curtis Kelly, or rather 93 of Cody Kinsey. Curtis Kelly, one of the few half spinners there. Here is CJ Munier, who goes through it for a moment. And that's a spinning Craig Laumslager just in front. There's Eric Schaefer hard on the brakes. And that is a massive pileup. I guess you could call it, Francisco, the big one from Vegas.
There was about 3 cars that went right through not Jesse Breeze, but the 2 of Austin Bloom. And I think all 3 of those guys are very lucky to have had those iRacing netcode moments to be able to go right through them and have no damage to their race car. Very fortunate some of those guys are. But I think the most important takeaway from that crash, Kenneth, is new tires seem to be very problematic on this racetrack. And I'm not sure that it's necessarily a temperature issue, because they don't exactly have an issue getting up to temperature, but it seems as though the combination of the aerodynamics of this race car with the tire dynamic of the race car, it is very troublesome when you have brand new sticker tires and they go out there and they do that, because we saw everybody on old tires, they did just fine, not even a slightest wiggle.
And I also like to point this out as well, because across the stock car landscape, when you race the truck, when you race the Xfinity Series cars, and even if you race the older Legacy Gen 6 cars or even the COT, when you get fresh rubber, of course it does help you because you have extra grip, and if you're fighting against a guy with older tires, you're going to be able to really beat them dramatically. But in the case of when you have cold tires, it is still new tires. You got the grip, but you can't really make use of them until you warm them up, because when you've got the cold rubber, it just does not acclimate to the track very well. And we've seen spins, we've seen slight mistakes, we've seen many different things happen across the NASCAR world with cold tires. Now with this car, it seems to be a lot worse of a problem than it's ever been, because while the truck you can get sideways, the Xfinity car you can get sideways, same deal with the older Cup cars, you can usually correct it, you can usually get back up to speed, and you can have sort of a whoopsie moment, but you can kind of keep going and not have any issues. With this next-gen car, if you push it even just once, a little bit too much on the cold tires, that car wants to snap, and it does not care what you as a driver want to do input-wise. So cold tires seem to be a very big problem spot for this car and for this series, and it just makes things more interesting as to how pit road strategy is going to work, because you want grip, yes, but are you willing to take the risk with cold tires and your car potentially being able to snap out in a certain way like we've seen with many tonight?
And I think a working theory could be this. I think what you mentioned there with the tires and their temperature, but also these cars, they have something in them that makes it naturally snap. And you talked about the diffuser. If the car gets sideways, the way the air flows underneath the race car, that's going to kind of push it into the spin more than it would if there wasn't a diffuser there. So I think actually the diffuser plus cold tires is probably the worst combination that you can have on a stock car with how heavy it is and the aerodynamics are working underneath that race car. So I think the second you get sideways with this car on new tires, I think tires don't have the grip to kind of try to reconnect to the proper direction, but the diffuser doesn't help it anymore. So I think it's kind of a double whammy.
So we'll see if we have any more issues. It doesn't look like it will be any problems here, at least moving forward, but we will get back on a restart. This is going to be a lap 72 of 134. This will officially be the halfway mark of tonight's race from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, or at least well past halfway. We kind of got around the lap 60 to 70 range. That was around halfway. We're at lap 71, so we're pretty much a little bit further past halfway with new driver up at the front, Colin Forster in the 99 Chevrolet Camaro. New colors as well, sporting the WinVal 8820 sponsor. Of course, if you recognize that gamer tag somewhere across the iRacing world, you know that is Michael Cozy Jr. And with Colin Forster sporting the same number that Cozy does in most of his iRacing events, of course, no surprise that he finds that Starcom 99 number and slaps it on the side of his race car. Green flag back in the air. That is Forster up at the front. Looks like AJ Green finds his way to second. Immediately single file coming to turn one. We'll see if there are any issues surrounding the field. There's Lance Hill right to the outside of Curtis Kelly. It's a pass for P4.
And you saw teamwork right there on that restart on the inside lane. Those teammates were able to time the restart to perfection. Get both of them out there, but this 25, he's not part of it. He wants to go and race for himself. Michelle, one of those guys that you talked about from that MPI Cup Series, he has come over here to try and run on his own, and he's making a name for himself. Was one of the fastest in practice for a decent amount of time. It's decent in qualifying, and right now on the race, he's doing a good job right there, trying to get into that second spot. And he's going to make some slight contact with AJ Green. They're both going to make door-to-door contact. There's nothing wrong there. It looks like the 25 does get clear, so now he's going to try and make a move on your leader. The question is, what happens behind him that prevents him from making that move if it happens before he gets to the inside or outside of the 99? Because look at AJ Green. He's going to try and be aggressive as the 25 really swung wide, and that kind of opens the door for the rest of them. But look at Austin Reedy. Actually, he's climbed his way back up to 6th, so he may have gone through the grass, but the speed is still in that car. And remember, he is on new tires, so he is going to be faster than some of these guys at the end of the day.
Trying to maximize the fresh tire power as he goes to the outside of Curtis Kelly, but we've got a battle for the race lead. Here comes Los Angeles, California's Daniel Michel to the inside of Colin Forster. They'll go still door-to-door out of turn 4, and now comes the question. Of course, AJ Green going to be the third party in this, so will Lance Hill. And we've seen before, the outside so dominant when you can get 2 to 3 or 4 cars up there on that very top lane. You can make use of the draft. And Stocks Motorsports kind of in a 3 versus 1 as Michel will clear for second.
He realizes the situation very quickly, was able to jump to the outside, kind of mitigate what was going on, and he's going to try and reset here now and see if he can make a little bit more of a fair attack from his perspective to the 99 of Forster. But something we haven't seen too much of, Kenneth, is the side draft. We know you can really side draft these cars when you get side by side on the straightaways. We haven't seen much of that. He's going to try and get to the quarter panel in the corner. We've seen that for sure, but we haven't seen it on the straightaways. And I think right here, you actually just might see it. He is to the outside of Colin Forster. So the 25 of Michel is going to try and take the lead away from the outside of one of your previous season's championship contenders. He's going to hold that outside very strong. If he can stay there, it will put him in a good spot. It does. Right there, you see, he's going to try and get close to the quarter panel. Still has a ways to go, but he's going to try and drag him back, and this is a good spot for him. He's going to have the outside, a little bit of a nose advantage going into 1 and 2. Forster in those bumps is not going to have the same amount of grip as he would in 3 and 4. But he does a good job. He's going to try and hold his ground, but it's not going to be enough. It looks as though the 25 won't get clear. They'll stay side by side.
What a battle this is for the race lead. Michel still trying to make use of that high lane. A couple laps ago, though, saw Lance Hill in 4th have a bit of a mistake out of turn 2. He's okay. Back to the rear bumper of his teammate, AJ Green, to assist. Colin Forster is all by himself on the very inside. Michel this time could have the clearance coming out of 2. Not going to have it. Slides up the track. Forster still there.
Well, they better solve this out quickly because Austin Reedy's caught this group up ahead. He is now working on those 2 that are behind the top 2, and he's going to try and get around them, and he will have an advantage. Of course, he has those new tires. They've worked themselves in, so they don't have that same problem we saw in the restart. He's going to try and get past AJ Green here rather quickly, try and see if he can go up for the lead. But they're still side by side up in the front. They've all caught up together. It is 5 cars underneath a blanket for the top spot.
Here's on board with Lance Hill. AJ Green, his teammate to the inside. Austin Reedy not too far from the rear bumper. You see Michel just trying to peek into the inside. Finally is able to clear, still in second. So he won't be able to achieve race lead status for the moment. But he does let Colin Forster know he is there. Now here comes Reedy. Makes the pass complete for fourth. So Reedy just trying to chip in what's been a stock motorsports group apart from Daniel Michel up in this point in the race. All three lines being used. Lance Hill way sideways. He's able to save it.
Going all the way up to the wall, but unable to make it work because Reedy gets to his inside. So those two will battle for the final step of the podium, but you can't help but feel that Austin Reedy is going to have the upper hand in this one with those fresher tires. Not exactly easy to take, just has the upper hand to do so, and he does get clear off the corner. Will slide up in front of the 38, take over that third spot, and Michel kind of lost a little bit of touch with that 99 after having to hold off for that second spot, and now he's going to have an aggressive and quick Austin Reedy behind him, trying to see if he can retake that top spot.
And now you got to think, if you're Austin Reedy riding around in third, do you try to take Michel for your own, or do you try to work with him to take over the lead and at least get by Colin Forster? Because you know there's Lance Hill who's trying to go to the inside right now. AJ Green is not too far away in P5, so if they band together, best believe they're going to try to hook up and at least beat the 25 and the 11 to the start finish line and gain some position. So as Reedy, it looks like he's going to fall back here in 1 and 2 to the 38. He's got to be thinking about that if he catches up to the 25, and whether he can work with the California native or whether he's going to just try and take the two birds with one stone. Although he's got a lot more to worry about this time, because Hill, although he's had a couple of mistakes, a couple of sideways moments, he's now back to the inside for third.
Yeah, he's battling the 11 of Reedy, but also one thing to know is that they all know that Reedy does have newer tires, and that does affect how they battle him. If they want to try and hold him back for a little bit, and we know that Stonks Motorsports would do that in order to help their teammate in the lead, they might try and hold up a little bit. That 11 kind of halts his progress, delay it a little bit, or cause him to use his tires up a little bit more in order to try and help Forster out. But here's someone else who did come down pit road as well for those new tires, Lawson Peels, and he's starting to charge in on that top 5 group. He's really starting to close in the gap. We saw him have some damage earlier on the race on the right side. I'm not sure if a fast repair necessarily was used, but he's definitely fixed up the damage on the right side of that race car, and he's starting to work his way to the front. And we could see him here in just a handful of laps. And Austin Reedy now back on the back bumper of the 25. We'll see if he goes to the inside. He will make the move to the bottom side of the racetrack and try to go for P2. He's not going to be too aggressive. There's still 50 laps to go in this race, but Reedy also is just that fast. He has a big speed advantage over the 99, and he can find him all he wants, but it was definitely going to be inevitable. But right there, you see, he just hangs onto that quarter panel on the outside, and that's all he needs to kind of have a fighter's chance here right now. Staying on this outside of the 11 is going to be crucial for the chances of him trying to keep this race lead, because if Reedy gets clear and builds more than a car length gap between himself and the 99, it was going to be over for him, at least in the short term of this run. But the 25 is going to try and help the 11. Not sure if he wants to try and keep them side by side or get the 11 clear, but whoever he goes with here is going to be very crucial. That's going to probably push them out ahead. You see Reedy have a little bit of a decent turn too. The 99 is going to stay on the outside. Michel trying to play the line game here to keep them side by side. He might be thinking 3 wide here soon.
Maybe, but drafts also could come into play, because if he works with somebody like he did with Reedy just a little bit there, they could manage to get by Colin Forster and just be able to slice him out, and then he can work on Reedy for the race lead. Right on board there, he gives a slight shove to Reedy going into 1. They'll manage the bumps in 1 and 2. Forster still holding up high, and while he's trying to make his way in for third, they're now starting to pounce in terms of them. It's AJ Green, Lance Hill, that is 4th and 5th. AJ Green now to the inside, and it is side by side, 2 rows deep here at Las Vegas.
There's a 5-car battle for the lead, and it is some great stuff here, Kenneth. But look at that, the 99 able to get to the outside of Reedy, still trying to hold off for the race lead. This is Amazing stuff here from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Look at that. They're going to try and go 3 wide for a brief second, back for a third. We have not seen anything like this in a while. This is not something we were able to see with the Gen 6 car.
They're fighting right now for the lead, at least first through fifth. But what they don't know is that Lawson Peels and Curtis Kelly, who are going single file, by the way, they're starting to catch up. You watch Lance Hill duck to the inside of Daniel Michel. AJ Green, surprisingly, not going to duck down and give help. Maybe looking for 3 wide. Going into turn 1, they continue to go side by side. Reedy and Forster, yet with an advantage. Hill will push up out of 2. Give Michel the clearance for P3. AJ Green will try and go down. It looks like Lawson Peels and Curtis Kelly, Francisco, are smiling ear to ear. They want to continue to see them go side by side so they can catch up.
Oh, they love this. They love this every bit. They're going to catch up, and then get closer to, and then eventually be a part of the battle themselves. And maybe in doing so, this is helping their tire situation. They're battling very crazily up there and could be using their tires very much. And that could open the door for Curtis Kelly and Lawson Peels to get up there. But look at that little bit of contact. You saw it right there between the 25 and the 48 there. They were able to make some contact. The 25 moved up the racetrack. Unfortunately, they were all able to save it. That was a great save there by the 25, but you saw aggression there out of these guys trying to battle for that spot. The Stocks Motorsports crew is trying to work very aggressive to take the lead from Austin Reedy. Reedy is clear though, so he might be able to pull away now that he is clear, but we'll have to see if these teammates, if they get single file, if they try to work something out, if they're able to mount a challenge. Do remember there are some better tires, and it looks like the 25 may have tagged the wall there off turn 2. Nothing crazy, maybe just a little bit of a kiss, but he definitely lost the position he had on the 38, and now he's going to be down in P5. So now it's going to be the Stocks Motorsports team. There, you see them right there. They're all 3 together, P2 through P4. We'll see if they work together to catch up Reedy, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Reedy, with those better tires, able to pull away. Instead, it's going to be this 4-car pack, which will eventually get caught by Lawson Peels and Curtis Kelly further behind.
What's insane about all this, it's happening for the lead as you ride on board with Lance Hill, who just manages to stay behind Colin Forster in P4. While they continue to do this, they know there's another pit stop on their hands. We've been green this entire time. There has not been a yellow that's flown on the speedway, so if it stays like this, they know that although they've been kind of going side by side like it's the last lap, they understand there's still a long game they have to play. They still have to come down one more time to get to the checkered flag in this event. So it looks like they'll calm down for a moment. Hill will try to go side by side with Michel. That's going to get very close at a turn 2. That could be very well the caution right there. But if they stay green, pit stop strategy is going to slam in the midst of what's been a fantastic battle from first through fifth.
And that could be coming sometime in the next 15 or so laps, Kenneth, because when we went green after the last caution, it was around that lap 70 or 75 lap mark in the race. So that was about 20 laps ago. We saw most of the field pit closer to the halfway point, if you will. So we could be seeing pit stops between lap 105, lap 110 in this race. That'll be around 20 laps to go or so, or just under that mark. But we also could see guys come in early. The window is open now. It is just open. So if you want to come down pit road, make it to the end of the race, for sure you will do so. But look, it looks to be damaged there on the 38 of Hill, and it looks like he is slow. So let's try and get a look as to what happened. It looks like, oh, you saw it right there, just a brief second there. We're gonna a bit of a better look. It looks as though the 25 did not run the bottom here. He was trying to run up high to kind of challenge the 38. Gets a little bit loose, tags the 38. They make contact, and hard into the outside wall goes the 38 of Lance Hill. Very slow on the racetrack. Fortunately, no caution comes out. And look at this. This is going to be very crazy as those guys that were battling for position were able to go by. Unfortunately, no yellow was coming out, but Hill, now very slow on the racetrack, has lost some touch. We'll have to see if he's able to recoup.
I wonder why he was falling so drastically through the field, practically plummeted, and at one point kind of thought that he was going down pit road while the fuel window was open, but turns out it was that slight contact with Daniel Michel, who has since fallen back to 6th. Now Lance Hill in the worst place out of them all in terms of the Stock Motorsports group. He's now going to have to find sort of a circumvent option in terms of pit road, or at least hope for a caution to come out. We mentioned that the top 5 was all in a train battling each other from 1st through 5th. They were letting Lawson Peels and Curtis Kelly catch up. Has not been the case in terms of your top 3 leaders. Reedy, Green, and Forster have since gone single file. They've continued to manage their gap, but Lawson Peels, Curtis Kelly, with the fighting between Michel and Lance Hill on the racetrack in the tail end of that first group, They managed to get by the 25 and the 38, and so the 12 and the 71 now put themselves 4th and 5th on the track, and that is a very good vantage point, Francisco, just because with the fact that we are anticipating green flag stops very soon as we cross over the lap 100 mark, it gives them a better place to see what the leaders are doing, see what kind of tactics they're trying to use, whether it's to save fuel or whether it's just to do whatever on their route for their strategy. It could give them an upper hand in terms of a notebook on what they can do, whether it's pitting later or pitting earlier, to try and take the race lead away from Peel and Kelly.
I think the best thing that you can have is seeing the leader. If you can see the leader, then you can try some sort of strategy and at least feel like you have a shot at being able to do so, right? Because you have them right there, you're able to see them, and you want to do something different. So that being the case, actually we have some pit stops right now. It looks like 42 of Christopher Bishop's in, the 38 of Lance Hill, the 53 of Kevin D'Elia. They have come down pit road now, so they have started this sequence. This is going to take them to the end of the race. So these are the first guys that are coming in. How long will it be before we see the leaders of the race right now decide to come down pit road for themselves and make their final green flag pit stop? Because of course, if we do get a yellow flag, that will mean we have another pit stop to go, but we're still a ways away from that being the case. Right now, we still have to get through at least a green flag pit stop. None of the leaders have come in yet, but they will do so in the next couple of laps, and it'll be interesting to see in what order do they do so, because that could impact how they come off of pit road.
And I did talk about Lance Hill having to find a way to circumvent the race leaders in order to keep himself in this fight. It's exactly what he does. He pits early, like a lot of other drivers do near the rear of the field, and so he will be one of the first cracks at what's going to be the final pit stop here tonight from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. There you look at Lawson Peels up in the 4th place position, who's been close to race wins numerous times this season, and actually did go to victory lane in the campaign. Got it in race number 2 at the Phoenix Raceway, so Pio knows a thing or two about beating the competition, being able to rise above everybody else. Lance Hill all the way in the back, and Lawson Peels just trying to find a way to maybe get around these top 3 who have been dominant in the second half of this race. Austin Riddy, who's trying to go for his 2nd win in this season, is going to have a tall task above him. He's going to be trying to have the best pit road sequence as he can. We've seen it before, Francisco, as well. People overshooting their entrance to pit road out of turn 4 under green. People missing their pit box with the way these brakes are formatted here in this next-gen car. There are so many factors that can plague Austin Riddy, race leader, and it's going to plague him a little bit more because AJ Green's looking for the lead.
And one thing to remember is Reedy now knows what Smith did to him on that pit stop that we had on the first green flag pit stop earlier in the race, and maybe he could use that against one of these guys, so he can get to the outside of the 48 or the outside of the 99, be racy with them, force them to have a compromised line through 3 and 4, and then back out of it, come down pit road and actually give yourself a pretty decent entry, and you have already compromised them on their entry. At that point, that means have a solid going through the pit lane of stopping in the box, exiting the box, and then exiting pit road as effectively as possible to try and gain the most amount of time. Well, if he does that same sort of move on them, that could work out in Reedy's favor, but still the most important thing is timing of when you pit. We know that those that pit a lap before or 2 laps before have a strong chance of exiting in the lead. The only question is how effective is the overcut going to be. We see a couple more cars on pit road. This is going to be AJ Green and Colin Forster. You see them sharing those pit styles right there. And so far still on the racetrack is the 12 of Peel, the 25 of Michel. We have the 71 of Curtis Kelly, and of course Austin Reedy still out on the racetrack. I think he waited 1 lap after these two, and I believe there he is now on pit road is your race leader. He's going to give up that race lead spot, come down pit road, so we'll try and see where he results in relation to the likes of Colin Forster and AJ Green. So we'll pull up AJ Green here on my end. AJ Green has just now left pit road. That means, and there's Austin Reedy now pulling into his stall. The pit stops take about 15 seconds or so, give or take, Kenneth. So we'll see just how this works out. Forster's actually ahead of AJ Green. Forster's already on the back straightaway going into turn 3. There you see Reedy actually have the left sides done, and he's actually exiting pit road. He has a little bit of ways to go before he actually comes out of pit road. There you see Peel. So Reedy's now on the pit exit. getting up to speed, and Forster's just crossed the line. So I do believe Austin Reedy has done a better job getting on and off pit road, because he is going to, it looks like he's going to keep the lead off pit road.
There you see the 99 of Forster in relative. There's the 12, there's the 25, and Austin Reedy is right there. That black and yellow MTC Chevrolet Camaro underneath CJ Munier, who I believe has stayed out. He is currently third, but here comes Forster right to the outside. Didn't take long. That's Mark Harris coming down pit road, and Reedy's gonna go for another slide in the grass call along Care Services, because Austin Reedy's there, and he'll drift once again. That is a dagger on what could be the race win for Austin Reedy, as they got very close to a slowing Mark Harris, who was just trying to complete his last stop.
That was very close to being a crash, but also it struck again for Austin Reedy. We saw this happen the last time he made a pit stop on the first lap he went after those tires were taken in. So we'll see here what the case was. It looks as though he had a pretty decent exit off pit road, and actually now we have a caution flag. We'll get to that in a second. But here you see the exit of Reedy. He's able to get in the pit road. The 5's going to come down. You see he's running right there on the low side. Reedy tries to shoot the gap, but he's actually already loose way before that, and he keeps it from going around all the further. So a good job of keeping it straight right there, and the caution does come out, so this actually benefits him. He's able to have another chance at this. So now we'll get a look and see what exactly brought out the yellow flag.
See exactly what might have transpired. We're going to try and see who may have been the problem here on this yellow flag. We'll, of course, try to look through the rest of the field, as that time we were looking at what happened with the 11 of Austin Reedy. It looks as though heard some contact maybe around turns 3 and 4. We'll try to see. Doesn't look to be a majority of the front runners. There's a look at Tyler Murray, Blake Sperling. A lot of these guys
who have been the 22 of Schaefer and the 16 of Matt Roberts.
Oh, there it is. I believe that's 1 and 2 for the both of them.
Yep.
That's Roberts on the inside, Schaefer on the outside. And Schaefer just really lost the car, caught the 16 as he was trying to chase the car back down the track. And it's just another case of the small mistake sends you into a very big issue. Here's on board with Schaefer as he came through the first 2 corners.
Once again, a car just losing it on the entry of the corner. You see immediately, as soon as he goes through, the car steps away. There was no chance of recovering that. Slides into the 16 of Matt Roberts, who was just kind of riding around. A little bit of a 360. See the toe kind of bent on that race car as he was kind of crab walking after hitting the wall. But unfortunate for both of those guys involved. And, you know, it's not been an easy night for both of them. But Eric Schaefer had actually had an incident 2 laps before. If we can go back and look at it, it was on lap 105 in the race off of turn 2. He had a big slide, and that car was junked, but it did not hit the inside wall nor spin back into the racetrack. But he was basically perpendicular to the racetrack. He was that far sideways, then he was able to keep going, no caution flag. So that was on the lap after he exited pit road. So obviously some issues with that 22, but if we can go back and look at that save he had on the back straightaway, it was astounding on lap 105.
He also had that a little bit earlier tonight, and we looked at it while it happened live, so it's safe to say I think Schaefer has a handle on this next-gen car. He knows how to save it. He knows how to drive it well. Unfortunately, they're just kind of caught out at the wrong moment into 1 and 2. So that was CJ Munier, the 89 machine who had just gone down pit road. He was the last one, mind you, that did not come in for service. He was scheduled to come in, but he was just trying to overcut everybody else on an attempt to maybe cycle his way up a couple spots, or maybe even close to the race leaders. But with this caution coming out, forces CJ Munier to come down pit road. He cannot make it all the way on what was a 42-lap stint for the Chevrolet Camaro, and so he will make the stop down, and he'll lose a lot of track position as a result. He will have the freshest tires of the field, though, so that is the other side of the sword that he also has to think about. So this will shuffle Colin Forrester to your race lead with 22 laps to go. Curtis Kelly has found his way to second. What a drive, by the way, Francisco, it's been for this number 71 of Curtis Kelly. Just a fantastic drive from the Ford Mustang, and what's been a great season from the get-go. We didn't see this in the last campaign with the Gen 6 cars. I think it's a testament to not only how good Kelly is with this next-gen machine, but just how much this car equalizes a majority of the field. Curtis Kelly being one of those drivers.
You know, one of the things that we didn't see with this series, because this was formed in 2020, Kenneth, was we never really saw most of these leagues with the Legacy Gen 6 before the 550 package. So we don't know how these guys actually raced with the Cup cars when they still had their old package that really had you work in the race car like it once was. So we don't know who was really good with those cars, who was sort of dominant, if it was sort of like what we're seeing right now. Obviously, the next gen has some different twists to it that those cars didn't have, but you can kind of expect something similar when you have to either brake or have a lot of off throttle time and have this sort of deal, because if whoever was successful then is successful now, then we know who would have been dominant if we used those old cars as they once did. But right now, the talent, these guys are showing their immense talent and holding the car straight in what is tough circumstances. By no means has it been easy. We've seen countless instances in turn one where guys have just lost the race car, not exactly by any fault of their own. The car is just going to spin out because of the aerodynamics in which they've been introduced. So it's just very difficult circumstances, and a lot of these guys are showing their talent right now.
So we'll try to take a replay. This is with Eric Schaefer. So we found the lap. Looks like 104 was the lap here that it happened. This is him coming out of pit road, by the way. So this is just fresh off of him getting 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. This is pretty casual running through the inside lane. Just going to merge back here in turns 1 and 2. And then we'll see the problem arise on the back straightaway. So the 22 comes up to speed. So it gets up to stump it. This is going to be the next lap in. So we'll continue to watch in as the lights are still on the iRacing official pace card. This is him getting up to speed. There is Christopher Bishop just far behind. It looks like that's around where, you know, you see everybody just all separated. Pit road strategy is already well underway. We were kind of looking at the leaders, seeing exactly what happens. But I think it's just another case of just getting loose, cold tires, whatever you may call it. Eric Schaefer, another sideways movement. Looks like it's going to be here out of turn 2. Slides up the banking right there. Gets the car. Yeah, that is almost 90 degrees sideways, and he managed to keep it straight. And that was, I don't even think, a touch of a brake. I don't think.
I don't know if he did. It's very questionable how you can save a race car like that. I'll be honest, it's not easy at all. You get the car barely sideways, and it's very difficult to save it. We've seen that countless times here tonight, and this man was able to have it that far sideways, and probably, and you saw right there with the tire smoke, he was putting in throttle, so he was definitely digging, trying to keep the car pointed in the right direction. He did just that. Unfortunately, 2 laps later, well, not exactly the same case, as he had the problem entering turn 1. But that's how we brought out the caution. The caution's about to finish out. We're about to go back under the green flag. We're going to have exactly 20 laps to go. It's going to be the 99 of Colin Forrester leading us back to the green flag. Austin Reedy's down in the 9th position. The green flag's getting ready to come back out. It's been an attrition-filled race, but 20 laps to go at Las Vegas. Who's going to get the job done when the money counts?
Colin Forrester, quick to the gas and quick to the race lead. He'll go in turn 1. He'll clear Curtis Kelly and company back to the first corner with 20 laps to go. There's CJ Munir. Remember, we saw him pit. He's now in 3rd. There's Lawson Peels. Look at him charge to the top 5. He's going to go immediately to the inside of the 89. No help into turn 3. Lawson Peels trying to make up for lost ground. He also used the fast repair, by the way. And here he comes to the inside of Curtis Kelly for P2.
Remember, he was the pole sitter for this race, so he is no slouch as far as speed is concerned. And as right now, he is most certainly showing it. You see cars fanning out through the tri-oval a little bit further back, trying to battle for position as we go through turn 1 now up to speed. We'll have to see if anybody is able to avoid any sort of precarious situations going through that first corner. You see Austin Reedy's made up some spots now, trying to get into the top 5. It seems as though we were clean on the first lap through turn 1, and once we get a couple of more laps through turn 1, it should be no issue. You see right now, goes to the inside of Daniel Michel for that 5th position, trying to crack into the top 5, and that's, I believe, that's the 09, I believe, right in front of him, that he's going to try and go for the 4th position. There's the 6th of Michael Newbro. We haven't talked about Michael Newbro all day, Kenneth, and right there he is in the top 10, trying to see if he can get a solid result out of this. And excuse me, that's actually the 89 of... Actually, we have a caution out on the racetrack now. It looks as though something did happen.
So a caution near the rear of the field, looks like. I think may have been... We'll see. Well, further back here, AJ Green is, I think, buried deep, but it looks like he may have had nothing to do with this incident. Maybe Matt Roberts, once again in the 16. There he is, slow, P27. He is the last car in the running order that's still on track, everybody. 28th on back, has since gone to the garage and DNF tonight from Las Vegas. So we'll see if Roberts is the cause of concern or whether it was something else. Looks like he was further back in the incident, so there were other drivers involved. That's a huge hit to the outside of wall, and that might have been, I think, Tyler Warner in the 33. Indeed it is.
Yeah, you see, Christopher Bishop was the one that had gone around, and that the 75 Azuti into the wall, but the 33, an immense impact in the outside wall. Schaefer with a good avoidance there, able to split the middle. Not exactly a good spot if you're the 33 of Tyler. You've been involved in a couple of incidents here tonight. You see the incident happen up there. He's going to try and come down the racetrack and just gets clipped in that right rear. Not exactly ideal for him. You see another car there trying to go through. I believe that was Dustin Webb that was able to check up in enough time and avoid the incident. So we'll see here now outside of these race cars. The incident is going to happen right up ahead. He gets tagged from behind and gets into the outside wall. That's what put him in that spot anyway. And that's how that was set up. So it was two different circumstances that led to that whole event being triggered. And that's something we've seen probably more so today than most weeks, Kenneth. We've seen a lot of separate incidents kind of meshing together into one incident to bring out the caution.
Just a lot of chain reaction events, and obviously you saw the contact there between the 42 and what was the 03 of Brian Dixon. So Dixon was the one getting into the corner panel of Bishop going around, chasing the car down the track, and as Werner was trying to dash by, unfortunately could not do it in enough time, he ends up around and into the outside wall. That is the second time, by the way, that Tyler Werner has had that incident happen. We saw him do this, or have it happen to him, in the first segment of tonight's race, forced him to use the fast repair. It looks like for the 33, his night is officially done. So he gets added to the tally of drivers that are officially DNF tonight. In that group includes the 53 of Kevin D'Elia, the 64, former champion in this series, Scott Healy, Austin Bloom, and the two who went for a huge flying ride out of turn 1 and 2, and then of course Brian M. Smith, who was at one point your race leader in control on our first round of stops. So we do see Scott Healy in the YouTube chat says, well, not the start I wanted in the next gen 2022 year 2 DNF, but nonetheless not going to give up this season. And Scott Healy, of course, put the chat underneath, letting him know that it was him putting in that chat in YouTube. And of course, obviously unfortunate to see Healy out of this race, given the strength that we've seen him have over previous history in this series. And no doubt, Francisco, I think that last part of the sentence right there, not going to give up this season, testament to how good he is, and of course, how persistent he will be, even with the challenges that this new car has brought onto the field.
Of course, you know, at the end of the day, it's a challenge that everyone is going through. You know, it's not exactly exclusive to just Scott Healy. It's not exclusive to Colin Forrester. Everybody's going through these issues on iRacing right now because this car is brand new. We're getting new information on the race car, new updates. Quite often, really, that does change the handling of the race car because iRacing, of course, does have some, even though they've worked with NASCAR, it has limited information on this race car. So it's trying its best to have the complete deal. And maybe it's not there, maybe it is. At the end of the day, we don't know for sure. That's going to be worked out between iRacing and NASCAR. But at the end of the day, these guys are all battling the same issues. They're trying to learn this new race car, and it is nothing like what we have been used to before with the diffuser, with the aerodynamics, with the chassis, with the suspension of these cars, even down to the steering. We now have rack opinion steering, which has a lot of effects on these guys, on what they're doing with their wheels to try and not just turn the race car, but in order to save the race car, as compared to the steering ratios of what we used to have, and we have in the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the Truck Series as well. So a lot of different stuff with these race cars, and it's going to be a challenge for everybody. It's been a challenge for me. It's been a challenge for you, I know as well. You know, trying to get used to it as everybody, really. And that's going to be the theme of 2022, really, is everybody learning these brand new race cars, trying to get used to them, and try and get to the point where they can feel comfortable at every racetrack running them and not having issues like we're seeing tonight. Of course, we're being very kind. You know, we know that a lot of the incidents we're seeing here tonight is partly due to the limited knowledge of the race car, and that's no surprise. You know, that's bound to happen. And when you get a new race car that is so different, incidents like that does happen from relative inexperience. That is not the driver's fault. So it is going to be the theme of the season, but with a pass, you know.
It definitely is. And what I've noticed when this next-gen car came out, as we're about to get a restart here with 13 laps to go, Colin Forster, Lawson Peels, your first row. In previous generations, like let's say the transition from Gen 5, the COT, to Gen 6, and even before that, you kind of had a learning curve, but you kind of knew a lot of the similarities, and it still felt like a similar car. This one, on the other hand, is just way too different to call it similar to Gen 6. And so that's what's been a part of a very large learning curve for the drivers in the sim and in real life. We're going to try to learn more as to who's going to get this win in the final 13 laps from Las Vegas. Colin Forster immediately jumps ahead of the race lead in turn 1. They're side by side for second. That'll settle quickly. Lawson Peels getting the best of Curtis Kelly. Here comes Austin Reedy for third.
Reedy with another good restart now, trying to get back into the top 3. And Peels going to go to the inside of Forster for the lead.
Here comes Peels on the inside, your pole sitter and Phoenix winner a couple of races ago, trying to go for number 2. Going to stay side by side with Forster. Forster's going to keep in, and now opens a door for Kelly, for Reedy, and even 5th place CJ Lanier. But Forster is going to go sideways. He's going to immediately jump off the gas. Lawson Peels will clear, and Lawson Peels to the race lead out of turn 2.
And Kelly with a moment there in turn 2 that forces Reedy to the outside, and they're crashing in the back. Jesse Prees around a big one off turn 2.
Jesse Prees involved in a big mess out of the second corner, and that does involve former 5th place driver CJ Lanier in the 89. There he is on the very apron of the Nellis straightaway. I saw Lance Hill involved. Maybe a look at Dustin Webb. There's more damage up at the front. That's the 75 of Nicholas Vizzuti, who may have been in it. And then obviously the look out at turn 2 was just pure chaos. It was a battle for the lead, but it was just a fight for survival here on the back straightaway. Look at Michael Newbraw there on the replay, all the way in the grass, similar to what we've seen Austin Reedy do twice tonight. That was not the cause of concern. It's going to be around here. You see Brandon Banks get loose. That's Tyler Murray. There's Daniel Mitchell. And I think just more separate incidents, Francisco, not only with what happened with Jesse Prees, it's what happened with drivers even behind this group.
And ahead too, it looks as though there was a separate incident happening even further ahead. So it looks as though there was 3 incidents that kind of culminated here on this one big crash off of turn 2. We'll try to see right there. You see it's Prees sideways. This is in front of everybody, and he kind of overcorrects it right there and gets into that car right there, the 01. And then you see further back is the second incident, if you will. It's where we saw, I believe, the 38 of Hill get sideways, where most of these cars did get involved from. And then a third incident further back. So there's Prees. That's where the first incident happened. Then right there, you see Munier had a problem in the trial. He's all the way down the apron. He kind of gets out of everybody's way. But right there with Banks and Murray, that's another incident. You see the 38 get sideways. That was unprovoked by that incident. And now you see all these other guys start piling in. And Munier really, him being that slow though, Kenneth, I must say, must have saved some of that damage on the race car, because he did get hit, but with these new cars, probably not that big of a deal.
I was just about to say that. I think him slowing down on the apron and just getting caught up in it minimized what happened. And unlike the situation with Jesse Prees, with Blake Sperling, who is now out of this race, unfortunately, he was all the way down there, and then it was just a couple of spinning cars who had already lost a lot of the force that they had exerted in that wreck. They were just kind of on the aftermath of it, just trying to get back to a full stop before they can reignite the cars and go back on their way. So not huge in the impact for CJ Lanier, but of course it is going to affect the handling and obviously the aerodynamic part of the car as well. So we keep an eye on that for the 89. And unfortunate for Lanier, he had taken fresh tires. He was in the top 5, running very well. It's just a slight mistake there. The car steps out in the trial, and that is the second time, Francisco, that we see a next-gen car slide in the trial on the racetrack going into turn 1. It happened with Matt Roberts, and it happened with CJ Lanier, so it's not a freak accident.
It actually happened twice on that lap. We saw it out of the then race leader, Colin Forster, while he was battling Lawson Peels. He got sideways on the upper side of the trial, so there seems to be a little bit of a slickness up there once you get off the bottom in the trial. I'm not sure what exactly may cause it. I've driven laps around this racetrack with the next-gen car, and that was not a particular area where I struggled with as far as the handling on the race car like we've seen there. I've had similar issues to what you see most of the field have tonight, being corner entry into turn 1 with those bumps, the corner exit with the car snapping. That's all common, but I don't exactly recall the trial being a particular issue. Maybe that's something more characteristic of this nighttime setting, because that was not exactly something that was in those sessions. So maybe the cooler temperatures makes the travel a little bit slicker. That could be a potential option as to why this is going on. So still a lot of reasons that and things are going on that we may not know exactly why they're happening, but they're happening nonetheless, and we have to sort of point it out and bring it to everybody. But I do want to say a lot of attrition in this race, Kenneth, and I'll tell you what, that garage area is going to look very similar to what you and I saw at Daytona after the Daytona 500.
Yep, indeed. A lot of junked race cars, unfortunately, and we'll see if that translates onto the rest of the season. Of course, Michigan coming up 1 week from tonight. That will be another trip to a 2-mile oval, very large track in the Irish Hills of the state of Michigan. It'll be our second trip to a sister track, Auto Club, featured a couple of weeks back. In Michigan, we'll see speeds, like you said, Francisco, upwards of 200 miles per hour, probably entering turn 1. With the amount of banking they have there, a lot of the high speeds, and we are most likely going to have a day race in Brooklyn, Michigan. So if you want to catch that, 1 week from tonight, same time, same place, 9:10 p.m. Eastern, right here on the MaxSpeedTV YouTube channel. So we're going to set up for a restart here with officially 7 laps to go from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We'll run down the top 10 before we go green. Lawson Peels, former pole sitter tonight and former winner in this season. He'll be first. Colin Forster looking for his first win in the campaign. He'll be on the outside of that first row in P2. But there is a charging Austin Reedy who currently holds third on the inside of that second row with Curtis Kelly. Standout effort for the 71 tonight. He's fourth. AJ Green lines up the top 5 with Adam Alashar, fellow Stock Motorsports teammate, to his outside in P6. And you'll find Daniel Michel, the California native, with Brandon Banks to his outside. That is row number 4. Tyler Murray, Brian Dixon, your final drivers in the top 10. Francisco, any thoughts before we go 7-lap racing for the finish?
If Austin Reedy can still pull off this win despite sliding through the grass the amount of times he has, I will make him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for his win.
That is a very big proposition. You better count on that if he ends up winning this race.
And I make a good sandwich too.
We'll see. As the pace car comes down left to pit road, 2 Chevy Camaros manning the field, and it's an immediate jump out of Lawson Peels, but that does give Austin Reedy the advantage on the inside lane. He'll move in underneath the 99 for second, but Peels clear by a couple of car lengths to turn 1.
Peels well ahead, and Reedy trying to see if he can get into that second spot, but Forster with the outside lane is going to get clear for second. Reedy's going to move up, cover that. Actually, no, he's not going to cover that. He gives up that line for Curtis Kelly. Kelly's going to come through and now challenge for the third spot. So Reedy's going to actually fall down to 4th, and that's going to be very interesting now as they now get settled down into the trial. Look, contact a little bit further back. Alashar hard into the wall.
Alashar to the safer barrier, and a big slam. That's Craig Lounslauger into him. And a sideways 4 will mean caution flag on the racetrack once again. And it was teammate contact, by the way. AJ Green and Alashar getting together at the entrance of the tri-oval. And Alashar, after what was slightly an up and down day, turned good near the end, has immediately gone south. We'll take a look at the replay, but you saw it there on the battle cam from the top. Our aerial shot there as they were coming out of turn 4. Alashar just running the high lane. That's his teammate underneath. This is just them two battling for position within the top 5. That's Daniel Michel just behind in the sandwich stickers Camaro. You see Alashar bump the 3rd and 4th groove here. No problems up until, actually no, he got loose, so that sent him into the quarter panel. Wasn't an attempt to side draft. I was about to say, you'll see here from the 4, he just changes seams. That's the car sideways, and then as he tries to catch it, just contact with the 48, and then his car goes sideways.
And then right there, it comes down off the wall into traffic, and a heavy impact from behind. That was the not been comfortable. We'll have to see who it was that hit him initially. Well, whoever that was, that they definitely were not happy with the results of this. But you see right there, gets loose into the quarter panel, hard into the outside wall, and you have to feel that definitely broke a little bit of the steering with the way that these suspensions are. And it looks as though that was Craig Longsauger, so we're on board with him now. All is fine. Hard into the wall goes the 4, and tough situation there for the 13. And that's going to kill that race car as well, as he has no control at this point of the steering, at least not any suitable control, and he almost hits the inside wall. So it does drive it back, though, to pit road. I'm not sure if he has a faster pair, Kenneth. If he does, he's going to definitely use it. But if he doesn't, then it could be race over for him. But I do want to note there on that restart, we saw Reedy get clear for 3rd, decided not to move up, and allowed Curtis Kelly to take that 3rd spot. And now I wonder, was that tactical? Did Reedy assume that there was possibly going to be another caution flag, and he wanted to restart in fourth and or in the outside line?
I'm not exactly sure. That is a very good question, and I mean, it's hard to predict. You don't really know whether cautions are going to fly. You could make the prediction based on the trends, but I think Austin Riddy was just trying to race there. You saw him go underneath Colin Forster for second, and then the outside lane is just too dominant. I think he is in a predicament where he's happy that he's on the outside lane because of what he just saw there on the back straightaway. I'm not sure if it was entirely on purpose. He was trying to go for the lead, of course, trying to get by Forster so he can then try to get around Peel, then got caught up in the situation where Kelly beat him to the start finish line to the timing loop, and Riddy is now in fourth. Also, to answer your question, Francisco, or to answer your worries about the 13 about Craig Lonsluger, he did indeed use the fast pair earlier on tonight, so it looks like his race may be over. He's going to have to wad around with no front clip on the race cars. So as Lawson Peels crosses the start finish line, Francisco, 3 laps to go. I think we're in familiar territory.
Yeah, it's not something that has escaped us a couple of times on this channel in this series. Green-white checkered territory in the 4-wide racing series, and we know somebody who also is very familiar with green-white checkers in this league. It's the driver in second place. Last season, the first 3 races were all won in green-white checkers at different racetracks on a last lap pass. So if there's anybody that is absolutely savoring the moment right now, realizing what opportunity he has, it is that 99 of Colin Forster. He wants to take this opportunity. He knows he's in the Cat Burn Sea. He knows that he can get out there and pass that 12 car and win this race. But also the 12 car, Lawson Peels, the last time we raced that mile and a half, he won in the last race with the Gen 6. He was able to come away with the win at Atlanta. So Lawson Peels also feels that he may be in a good spot for this race win. And
there's no doubt Peels has had a lot of strength, but you could just say the same deal for Forster, even Kelly and Austin Riddy, even AJ Green, who's lining up the top 5, and even Daniel Mitchell, who's just in P6 and not too far away from the lead. Just so many strong, heavy hitters here, as we indeed will put ourselves in a green-white checkered territory. We'll have a restart with 2 laps to go. The thing about what's going to happen here is that Lawson Peels, his win, at least for the most part last season in the Cup Series, came under green. Colin Forster has been bitten by the bullet on both occasions on a green flag race to the end. Was passed by Mark Harris in 3 and 4. Lost the win at Auto Club, which would have been his defense there after winning last season. And then also got second, also got beat to the timing loop under green-white checkered circumstance by his own teammate, AJ Green. So if there's enough to losing, Forster wants nothing to do with losing in many different ways. He wants to at least have those first 2 losses and come away tonight with his very first checkered flag of 2022. Lights are off on the iRacing official pace car, which means we are ready for what could be the final restart from Sin City. Lawson Peels, your race leader. Colin Forster to the outside, trying to rip it all away from the Cobalt Chevrolet. Curtis Kelly is third. Austin Riddy back in fourth. AJ Green, Daniel Mitchell will line up the 3rd row here tonight, with Joe Sanchez coming from 18th and a lap down earlier tonight to 7th. Brandon Banks in 8th. Michael Newbraw in 9th. Tyler Murray, your league owner, into the top 10. So after we've been questioning the ability of the next-gen car, questioning how these drivers were going to get to the end, finally we will have our answer. We'll have multiple attempts to finish this race. We'll just hope that this one is the only one we will need. Pace car goes down to the entrance of pit road. Forster gets loose on the jump, and there goes Peels to the start-finish line. Austin Riddy will have the inside lane on the 99. He'll make the pass. Kelly, Riddy, Peels, your top 3 is. Forster tries to muster what's left.
This is the best situation that could have happened for the 12 of Peels. He has a big lead over Curtis Kelly. Austin Riddy is going to move into the 3rd spot, but what a nightmare situation for Forster, and they're going to be battling down there for 3rd.
They'll be battling for 3rd on back, but everybody's trying to catch Lawson Peels, who comes out of turn 4 and will get the white flag. Riddy gets loose on the front straightaway. It looks like we will keep this race under green. White flag in the air for the 12.
A massive crash in the back. We'll get a look at that after the race, but Lawson Peels started on pole, did not lead the opening laps of the race, and was immediately taken away by Brian M. Smith. Curtis Kelly is down in the second spot trying to catch up. It doesn't look like it'll be enough. He's just too far behind. Lawson Peels won the last mile and a half race we were at. He's the first repeat winner of the season. The gamble works. He wins at Vegas.
Lawson Peels, two-time winner this season. How about Curtis Kelly, who grabs second on the racetrack? Colin Forrester, with the hiccup on the restart, is not able to rebound. He is third at the start-finish line. But Lawson Peels, rookie last season, we saw how strong it was, even with the yellow stripes on his Chevrolet. And after ripping them off at the start of Season 4, Lawson Peels has been on a hot streak, and then finally grabs his second win of the campaign tonight. There's Tyler Murray, the owner, I think, giving his congratulations. You saw Colin Forrester, Curtis Kelly go by, sending their congrats to the 12. And what a drive it's been for the driver of the number 12. Lawson Peels burns it down from Vegas.
A good win by this 12 team, and the first repeat win of the season for them. It's got to feel good. I mean, he won 2 races last season as well, Kenneth, but it took him basically the whole time to get it done, all the way until the last race of the season. So far, 5 races, 2 wins. Definitely looking good for this 12 team. He puts a stamp on this early portion of the season. Didn't look like it was going his way for most of the night there. Did start on pole, so that he did show that he had speed, but was able to come through at the end of the night. There you see the 22 of Schaefer coming up to him. And as he celebrates here, we'll try and see if we can get a look at the crash that did happen coming to the white flag. Peels did take it, so that did make the race official. But we saw a massive crash from Reedy and the 25 of Michelle on back. That was around the 6th or 7th spot that we saw that happening. So we'll see right here that there's the restart. So we saw the 99 have an issue on this restart. It looks as though he maybe spun the tires, and the 12 goes rather early. There he goes. 99 spins the tires. Yep. And everyone's going to try and get by him here. And they do a good job of doing so. And then they're going to start racing for third on back. And off of turn 4, it's going to be chaos. Oh. Oh, no. Yeah, it was a interesting finish there, Kenneth. The whole situation, the way it worked out. But overall, tonight we definitely saw a mix of everything. We saw a green flag runs. We saw green flag pit stops. We saw a series of caution flags work out there towards the end. So everything that we talked about at the beginning of the race showed itself by the time the race was over. So overall, I think it was a success. We sort of predicted this race semi-correctly, but I think the person who's going to be leaving this race happiest is going to be that the race winner, of course, Lawson Peels. But Curtis Kelly, a career day for him in that P2 effort. He's definitely going to be someone who's happy about this too.
Definitely happy, and I think just riding off the momentum that he started 2022 with, Curtis Kelly going to have this race finish in memory for a very long time. And that also puts into the question, how long will it take if Curtis Kelly keeps driving like this to get a race win in this season? We'll just have to find out. There you saw a look at the top 10. There's a look at everybody from 11th through 20th. Lance Hill, of course, spinning on the last lap. He is the final driver on the lead lap. Adam Alishar, his teammate, the one first, 2 laps down and more. Those are all the drivers. The majority of them, unfortunately, taking a trip to the garage and ultimately being a DNF tonight. Jesse Prees caught up in a crash there out of turn 2 a little bit earlier tonight. Same deal with Blake Sperling. Tyler Warner going for a wild hit to the safer barrier twice tonight. Finishes 26th. Matt Roberts, who struggled all race long, comes home 27th. Kevin D'Elia, Scott Healy, Austin Bloom among your DNFs tonight here from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And Brian M. Smith, who started the outside, row number 1, unfortunately out, 86 laps down. So as we've wrapped up the restarts, as we try to get in what's the aftermath here, our post-race coverage here on MaxSpeedTV, it'll be time to bring in the 12 of Lawson Peels to victory lane for the second time in 2022. Lawson, we bring you in from Vegas victory lane. What a drive it was for you all race long. You started up front, you ran well, you got into some damage after hitting the outside of wall, but how were you able to hold off the field in the final laps and put yourself in a position to grab your second win of this season?
Yeah, just worked pretty well for me there, Kenneth. I got to race it a little hard with Brian early in the race, and for some reason it just took off and slid on me through turn 2, and it smacked the outside wall pretty good. And, wasn't bad enough to use a fast repair, but certainly slowed me down there for a little while, and, was able to come back and get back up to 5th or something. And then we had that green flag pit cycle. I went ahead and used the fast repair right there, and we got trapped a lap down, so I had to take a wave around. And then after that, it just kind of worked out well for me. I was able to get to second after one cycle, and then after the next caution, get Colin for the lead there and then hold him off. So certainly get your heart rate up, having a lot of cautions at the end like that. Anything can happen, including the leader just, making a mistake and getting loose. So it's always a little nerve-wracking, but glad it's over and glad to come out of here with a win here at Vegas.
Not only with a win at Vegas, but your second win of the season, your first one coming at Phoenix. So you can officially say you've crossed off 2 different types of racetracks, a short track in Avondale, Arizona, and on the West Coast, you stay undefeated, at least for the most part. You end up winning here at Las Vegas. But walk us through the trip on this next-gen car. Of course, you're one of the handful of this series that has gotten pretty quick with it over the first couple of races, while other drivers are still rather learning. What has been the challenge with this next-gen car, learning about its quirks, and, of course, racing in a package that really didn't come out on iRacing until a couple of weeks back?
Yeah, just the unpredictability. We didn't really know what we were getting until we, got the 670 package. Certainly just so much more off throttle time than we used to with the Gen 6 and, before they bumped us up to 670 there. So, it's really tight, pushing through the middle of the corner here at Vegas. But if you're the leader, you can get a little loose out there on new tires. And if you also get going really fast down the straightaway, with a lot of cars in front of you, then you can get really loose on entry. And that's the big thing we're battling tonight, is just loose on entry to turn 1. And, keeping the wheels under us down there, was really tight in 3 and 4. But it's certainly just a really tough combination of loose and tight and unpredictability. And, you can be tight and then it's going to, snap loose on you. At any time. So, it's just you're on edge most of the time. Fortunately, when we get a few laps on the tires there, you can kind of settle into a groove. And that, snappy loose on entry can kind of dissipate after a few laps. But, man, it's tough, especially on new tires, restarts, being around everybody. We're all in for a challenge, and I'm just happy not to get wrecked. So any race I can finish with a clean car and be in contention at the end and not get wrecked is a victory for me now, because it's certainly, we've been certainly having a lot of them since we've been driving this next gen car.
So you avert all the chaos, you get the checkered flag here tonight, and I want to bring up a point that has been sort of a play since last season. Of course, we had different package, different car, Gen 6, but it looked like as soon as you joined this series, you had the fire in you. You've won races before. You ran well. You won Richmond. You were able to get the W in the final race of the entire season at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. And it looks like 2022 is just a pickup after what you left off in 2021. So what does this mean not only for you as a driver developing in your route to championship glory in this series, and what does this say for Lawson Peels as a driver moving forward through the rest of the campaign?
Yeah, well, it's certainly a big weight off your shoulders to get a win early in the season. So that's always a good feeling, and to get 2 is a bonus. That's pretty cool. So fortunate to have 2 wins, and to be looking forward to playoff racing. And so just from now until then, just try to get more wins, and we're going to run some of the same tracks again in the playoffs. So learning what you can. and just having a good time. I mean, I just enjoy, getting on here in the middle of the week and having some good competitive racing with a lot of good drivers out here. And, it's what we like to do. So really enjoy it and have a lot of fun. And, certainly more enjoyable when the race goes your way. So happy tonight.
Of course, a lot of smiles going into the Irish Hills of Michigan 1 week from tonight. Before we let you go, though, on the win here from Las Vegas, Lawson, anybody you just want to thank for making it all possible?
Yeah, thanks to you for putting on a good broadcast as always, Kenneth. We're lucky to have you. Thanks to everybody making things happen here at 4 Wide, Tyler and Benson and all the guys. Thanks to my Drinking Bros teammates. Shout out to them. Really enjoy getting on here and running with them every week. Thanks to Joe Sanchez for painting my car, and that's all I got.
Well, we certainly appreciate the kind words, Lawson. On behalf of our team here at MaxSpeedTV, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, and congratulations on the win here tonight, your second in 2022. We'll let you go celebrate. I know the main strip isn't too far away, so virtually you can go there and celebrate your second win in the campaign. We'll see you at Michigan 1 week from tonight.
I think I'm going to migrate on over there, Kenneth. I appreciate it.
Lawson Peels, your race winner here tonight from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I think that's the best way to go out and celebrate. The best place to go out and celebrate a win is at a city like Las Vegas. Why not? You've got casinos, you've got bars, you've got clubs, you've got everything you could want and imagine in order to celebrate what's been a great night overall by the driver of the 12. We'll try to reel in the driver of the 71, Curtis Kelly, although I don't believe he's in any of the voice chats, so we may not have the opportunity.
He's actually there.
Oh, there he is. So we've got him in. Francisco, you've got one of the spotlight drivers tonight, Curtis Kelly, who finishes second.
Well, Curtis, you may have heard it right there. Definitely one of the top drivers of the night. You had a career run, it seems, running in the top 5 for most of this race, especially in that second half, and you're able to come away with a P2 finish. Can you just take us through the mindset in the closing laps when you were up front?
Kind of had the mindset tonight going into it that we just want to hang him back, learn the car, and that really played into my strengths at the end there. The car was quite unstable. A lot of us were finding, obviously, on that short run there, and I was having a real hard time on corner exit. So I was kind of losing it to people there, but I just got honestly lucky in the end with Forrester losing it on the front stretch a bit on that final restart and being able to pull away with Lawson.
Yeah, we saw most of the night there were struggles with this race car trying to learn what it was going to do, what it wasn't going to do, especially going into turn 1. That seemed to have been the problem spot. You mentioned it right there that sometimes you had a little bit of an issue, and it looks as though that the main issue was on new tires. Once you're up to speed, turn 1 was very problematic. Could you kind of describe to us what it was like going through turn 1 on these restarts once you were up to speed?
Yeah, these things, they really take a few more laps than the Gen 6 cars to build up the pressure on the tires, get that heat in there, so you kind of have ice underneath you, it feels like, almost for the first part of your run. And really, that was, I got loose a few times. You guys saw, I think, going into turn 1 there, and just knowing what it was like on the fresh tires there, I really was just trying to play it safe and keep the car up there and bring it home.
And you were able to bring it home indeed in P2, a very strong effort. You won at Myrtle Beach last season in a very chaotic race in the ARCA series. Still looking for that cup win. If you have performances like this, I feel that you will definitely get that job done sooner or later. A strong P2 effort, Curtis. Who's all to thank for it?
I want to thank the upfront guys, Stonks guys. We got Colin Forrester coming in P3 there, AJ Green, rough last lap there, Adam Alishire, Lance Hill, Mark Harrison, Kevin Daly running with us too. And shout out to you guys like usual. Great broadcast. We always enjoy you guys coming in to watch us race.
We appreciate that, Kelly. And of course, Michigan, the next racetrack, what are some expectations?
Not too sure. I haven't run these things there yet. I mean, Michigan, it's fast. It's going to be interesting to try out the 670 package there. Hopefully it's a bit more stable than we were having tonight. And yeah, just going to practice for that. See you guys next week.
Appreciate you taking the time with us, and we do wish you luck at Michigan to try and build on what has been a career day, Curtis. We hope to see you there.
Appreciate it.
Actually, I was muted a little bit, so I'll reel it back. Colin Forster here, who finishes P3. That was Curtis Kelly, who came in second. You just heard him with Francisco. Colin, I think overall a very challenging race for everybody, including yourself. This car snapping in places where you wouldn't expect it to with older previous generation NASCAR Cup Series cars. But still, you found a way to manage the learning curve tonight from Vegas. You ran up front a majority of the race, and strategy was a big part of it. Walk us through how you're able to do that strategy-wise, even though you were on sort of a different play than a majority of the field for a good amount of the race.
Yeah, just everyone at Stonk said, why don't we start at the back, since especially how the last few weeks of going at the beginning of the race worked well, and me and AJ just kind of played the strategy right, and we just got up front, got our halfway bonuses, which should help us a lot. But just a good strategy overall, which just helped us get to the lead, and luckily the tires weren't too old, so we were just able to manage them well, and just kind of cruise from there, staying at the front.
Because you managed yourself to keep yourself at the front. What seemed to be the biggest thing there running up at the front? Because it looked like, I think for one point of the race before the final pit stop, it was you, Austin Riddy, it looked like AJ Green, Daniel Michel, and then Lance Hill, who was in that group. So majority of them your teammates. How was that like to run side by side every single lap running for the lead, even though you guys still had a final pit stop on the way?
Yeah, it was definitely strange, just all of us still trying to get used to the new cars. I'm sure you see me there just get loose on the straightaway, in which I was definitely not expecting. It's definitely super strange, but we'll just manage it, keep learning the cars every race. I know we go to Michigan next, should be a fun race. Hopefully should be a little similar to Auto Club, but hopefully we have a fog clear race this time. But it should be a fun race. I mean, I know the draft package is going to be super strong there, especially Michigan. There's probably going to be a little more on throttle time than Auto Club, but I'm really looking forward to the next race. And P3 here is not bad, so we'll just keep trying to take the momentum into the next race.
Well, you just about answered my question there. I was just about to bring up Michigan next week, how well you did at Auto Club. I think we've got your motive going from 1 week to tonight. I think definitely a good shout out to a fellow YouTube streamer, fellow Twitch streamer, fellow iRacer, WinVal 8820, Michael Cozy Jr. On the hood of this car. I think before we let you go, Colin, is this paint scheme returning? Is this look coming back for full white competition later this year? And who do you got to thank for making tonight possible?
Paint scheme will definitely be back. Probably be back next week. I might run it the rest of the season. I don't know, but we'll see what happens with the paint scheme. But just shout out to everyone watching, including my dad, as well as shout out to everyone on Stonks Motorsports. Had a pretty decent day. Played with the strategy a little bit. Shout out to everyone in the league for having me. Great races every week, and hopefully we can learn these cars and put on a little bit less cautions, but just should still be good races. And also shout out for you guys doing the broadcast. Great job like usual, I'm sure.
We definitely appreciate it, Colin. Want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us. Of course, congratulations on this P3 effort. Maybe the Michael Cozy magic will come in soon enough with this 99. Again, congratulations, Colin, and we look forward to seeing you in Brooklyn, Michigan 1 week from tonight.
All right, thank you, sir.
Colin Forster, the 99 car, is in third, 37 laps, led a great run for your defending Championship 5 driver, and he ends up as the final driver in our interview section of the post-race. So, as we watch what ultimately was the final restart here tonight from Las Vegas in slow motion, Francisco, your final thoughts on what was a hectic 1.5 mile debut?
Well, I think you said it right there. It was a hectic race, but I think we saw exactly what we needed to see to feel comfortable going forward. We saw a lot of wrecks, but it was a part of the learning curve of what is going to happen with this race car, and it won't be the last time we see it, too. I think this is it's going to take several months of learning this race car, because you don't have years of notes built up like we did with the Gen 6. So that's going to come naturally as a part of these races as time goes on. But we did see some green flag runs there, and I think that's where it's promising. We were seeing some great racing well into the run. We saw people able to pass, people able to use different lines, try different stuff, different strategies, different everything. And it definitely looked promising at this racetrack. And I think there's a couple of tracks that we'll be heading to in the coming weeks, but also the future amount of halves where it could still sort of help out. So when we go to, say, Charlotte later on in the season, towards the end of the season, I think that will definitely be a little bit more helpful to trying to get the outside to work at Charlotte, I think tracks like Homestead will definitely maybe see the outside come in even more so than what we did towards the end of the Gen 6. It's going to be very interesting, Kenneth, overall, just what this next gen car is going to bring to us, especially next week at Michigan. You mentioned that we're going to be here exactly a week from today at the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern, on this MaxSpeedTV channel. Very happy. Good race here from Las Vegas. I can't wait to head out here when we're done, go out to the Strip, and go maybe catch a show from the Perry Playland on down at the Strip.
You know, we'll also head over to the Bellagio. We'll see the water show there in the nighttime sky after we just heard a bunch of roaring race cars go around for 135 laps. There's a look at your Cup Season 4 schedule. We've crossed off the first 5 races: Daytona, Phoenix Auto Club, Richmond, and now Las Vegas. We head for a similar 2-mile track over in the Irish Hills of Brooklyn, Michigan. Michigan International Speedway next on the calendar. And boy, we've got a wild stretch of races from there. Pocono right after on March 23rd. We've got Road America to close off March. And then we begin April with a returning track in the Loudon circuit, the New Hampshire Motor Speedway, Indianapolis returning, COTA, Bristol night, and all the way to Kansas, your regular season finale before we start the playoffs, June 29th at the virtual Nashville Super Speedway. So that does it for our coverage here on the MaxSpeedTV network for round number 5 of the 2022 4-Wide Racing Cup Series. Lawson Peels, your winner in the final restart of the race, becomes a 2-time winner and snaps the streak of different winners in the first races of this season. We'll see if we can replicate it, though. 1 week from tonight, we head for the Michigan International Speedway. And so that does it for us. On behalf of Tyler Murray and everybody at the admin team and the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series that makes these races happen each and every week, and on behalf of all of us at MaxSpeedTV, for Francisco Bacchial, my colleague in the booth, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Saying so long, good night from the Strip, good night from the Gambling City. We'll be back on the East Coast in 1